Guardians of the Galaxy. This one's interesting because it kind of had everything going for it, but for some reason, it didn't hit as big as people expected at launch. I mean, you've got one of the most beloved Marvel teams, a great developer, Eidos Montreal, and a focus on single-player storytelling, which is something a lot of people were craving, but when it dropped, it just didn't make the splash it should have. So, what happened? Well, for one, people were still feeling the aftershocks of Marvel's Avengers. That game didn't really land well with fans, and it made a lot of people skeptical about Guardians. Folks saw another Marvel game and thought, here we go again with another live service mess. Even though Guardians of the Galaxy is nothing like that. It's a totally single-player, story-driven experience with zero microtransactions or live service elements. But it got lumped in with Avengers, and that hurt its initial reception. Now let's talk about the controversial stuff. The characters. Some fans were thrown off because the game's versions of Star-Lord, Gamora, and the rest of the crew didn't look or sound like their MCU counterparts. If you're used to Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, or Zoe Saldana as Gamora, it might take you a second to adjust to these new interpretations, but once you do, you realize they're actually great. The writing is sharp, the dialogue is hilarious, and the chemistry between the Guardians is spot on. It feels like you're right there with them, and the banter between the team is one of the best parts of the game. The combat also got mixed reactions. Some people found it a little chaotic at first. Doom Eternal, a game that's just pure adrenaline. From the moment you start, it's like the game grabs you by the collar and throws you into this insane, demon-filled chaos. The pacing is so fast and relentless, it makes you feel like this unstoppable force. You're not just playing as the Doomslayer, you are the Doomslayer. And it's awesome. One thing I love about Doom Eternal is how it forces you to play aggressively. You can't just hide behind cover and pick off enemies from a distance like in other shooters. No way. You have to get in their faces, constantly moving, switching weapons, and using your chainsaw to keep your ammo up. It's this perfect mix of strategy and brutality. There's no time to breathe. And honestly, that's what makes it so much fun. Every fight feels like a frantic dance of destruction, and once you get the rhythm down, it's such a rush. The combat loop is where it really shines. You're always juggling resources, health, armor, ammo, and you get those by fighting. Need health? Glory kill a demon. Low on armor? Set enemies on fire with the flame belch. It's a constant back and forth, and it makes every encounter feel dynamic. You never just shoot your way through a room. You're managing the chaos, and that's what makes it so addicting. And the weapons, man. Each one feels so satisfying. The shotgun, the plasma rifle, the BFG. It's all there, and it's all beefed up to feel more powerful than ever. Doom Eternal is an absolute must-play. It's intense, it's challenging, and it's just pure, unfiltered fun. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now, this game was supposed to be a huge hit. It's a Star Wars game after all, and it's a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which everyone loved. But for some reason, Jedi Survivor didn't quite hit the same heights, at least not right away. Still, this is a game that's definitely better than its initial reception might suggest. When it launched, the game had a lot of bugs, especially on PC. People were reporting frame rate drops, crashes, and all sorts of technical problems. It was one of those situations where the game itself was great, but the technical hiccups held it back. And, in the world of gaming, nothing kills the hype faster than a buggy launch. But here's the thing, once you look past the technical stuff, which has mostly been patched up now, Jedi Survivor is an awesome game. It takes everything that made Fallen Order great and cranks it up a notch. The combat is even more fluid and fun, with new lightsaber stances that let you really customize how you play. Whether you want to go full-on double-bladed action or switch between blasters and sabers, the game gives you options, and it all feels so good. And the exploration. It's even better this time around. The planets in Jedi Survivor are bigger, more open, and filled with secrets to discover. The Metroidvania-style design is back, so you'll be unlocking new abilities and returning to areas to access previously locked-off sections. Jedi Survivor is a beautiful game. The environments are diverse and visually stunning. You definitely don't want to sleep on this one. CLAIR OBSCUR 33. This is an intricate and deeply atmospheric puzzle-adventure game that revolves around uncovering the truth. In a world shrouded in mystery and contrast, the game leans heavily into its mechanics, offering a blend of clever problem-solving and exploration that feels distinctly tailored for those who appreciate a cerebral challenge. It's a space where every element exists for a reason, demanding your attention to detail and rewarding your curiosity. Every area you explore challenges your perception, requiring you to think about space and perspective in ways that few other games dare to explore. The interplay of light and darkness serves as the foundation for its puzzles, turning even the simplest task into a layered and engaging experience. The puzzles here are methodically crafted, each one designed to push you just enough to keep you invested without ever feeling insurmountable. They rely on logic and experimentation, encouraging you to test boundaries and think creatively, whether it's manipulating objects, redirecting beams of light, or using shadows to your advantage. The game keeps its mechanics fresh by constantly introducing subtle twists that evolve as you progress. Exploration is a key part of the experience. CLAIR OBSCUR invites you to pay attention to every detail in your surroundings, as the world is filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. This is not a game where you can rush from point A to point B. It rewards patience and observation. Outer Wilds. This game is all about exploring the unknown, and it really leans into that feeling of pure discovery. You're a new astronaut, part of this tiny space program from a small, cozy alien race, and you're launched out into space with nothing but your ship and a lot of questions. And I mean a lot of questions. What's so cool about Outer Wilds is that it doesn't handhold or push you in any specific direction. You have this whole solar system to explore, and every single planet is like its own character. Each place is unique, with strange environments, hidden stories, and mysteries that just pull you in. You land somewhere, start exploring, and immediately find yourself getting wrapped up in something unexpected. The sense of wonder in this game is unreal. I mean, you'll be cruising along and suddenly you're uncovering secrets that are far bigger than you'd expect. There's something magical about wandering into these ancient ruins or discovering strange technologies from a long-lost civilization. And as you piece things together, you start to understand that every single mystery is connected, which is honestly so satisfying. One of my favorite things is how much Outer Wilds makes you feel like a real explorer. There's no combat or big flashy objectives. It's all about curiosity. Every time you figure something out, it feels like a little victory, and the game respects that you're smart enough to connect the dots on your own. Another thing is the time loop. It's such a unique mechanic that gives the game this sense of urgency, but without being punishing. Bloodborne. It absolutely deserved to win Game of the Year in 2015, but didn't quite get the crown. I mean, this game was From Software at its peak, delivering an intense gothic nightmare of a world that fans still rave about to this day. It's wild to think that something this groundbreaking didn't take home the big award. First off, the atmosphere in Bloodborne? Unreal. Yharnam was this dark, twisted, Victorian city filled with werewolves, cosmic horrors, and nightmare creatures that just kept you on edge the entire time. The design of the world was so hauntingly beautiful, with that classic From Software touch, where every alley and hidden path had a story to tell. The game didn't hold your hand either, which was part of its charm. You had to figure everything out on your own, from the lore to the mechanics. And let's talk about that combat system. Bloodborne took the typical slow, methodical Souls formula, and made it fast and aggressive. You couldn't just hang back and wait. The game literally rewarded you for going on the offense with that regain system. If you got hit, you had a window to hit back and regain your health, which encouraged players to stay in the fight instead of running away. It was like Dark Souls on adrenaline. But here's the thing. Bloodborne came out the same year as The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, and that's where things get tricky. The Witcher 3 swept most of the awards that year, and while it was undoubtedly a great game, a lot of people felt like Bloodborne was overshadowed because of that. But for those who played it, Bloodborne was a masterpiece. Just Cause 4. It's one of those games that you can't help but have fun with. The chaos, the explosions, the sheer scale of everything. It's like they designed it with the word epic in mind. You step into the boots of Rico Rodriguez once again, and right from the start, you're thrown into a massive open world with more possibilities than you can count. One of the first things you notice is how alive the world feels. Tornadoes, thunderstorms, blizzards, they're not just pretty to look at, they actually change the way you play. I remember the first time I got caught in a tornado. I had no idea what to do, but then I realized it doesn't matter. Just roll with it, because that's the spirit of Just Cause. The weather system isn't just a gimmick. It's part of the chaos that makes the game so unique. Then there's the grappling hook. It's not just a tool anymore, it's a way of life. You can customize it in so many ways, from making things float in midair to pulling objects together, to create chain reactions. It's insane. It's like the game is begging you to experiment, to find new ways to destroy everything in sight. The story in Just Cause 4 isn't the deepest thing in the world, but let's be honest, that's not why you're here. You're here to blow things up in the most creative ways possible, and the game gives you everything you need to do just that. You've got jets, tanks, helicopters, boats, and more. If it moves, you can hijack it, and if it doesn't move, well, you can probably make it explode. Mafia Definitive Edition. Alright, so I just finished this game, and honestly, I'm still processing how good it was. You know when a game just sticks with you? That's how this one feels. I've always had a soft spot for the original Mafia, but this remake? Wow, they really outdid themselves. It's like stepping into the 1930s for real. First off, the atmosphere. I don't know how they nailed the vibe of that era so perfectly. The city of Lost Heaven is just alive. Every little detail, from the cars to the buildings to the music, it really pulls you into that world. There were moments when I just wanted to drive around and take it all in, not even worrying about the mission at hand. Like, who knew 1930s radio stations would get me this hyped? And the story, it's not just a typical mobster narrative. You really get invested in Tommy Angelo's rise in the Salieri crime family. It's like playing through one of those classic gangster movies, but you're in control. I actually found myself sympathizing with him, which is wild considering, he's a criminal. But the voice acting, the facial expressions, it's all so believable. It draws you into the point where you care about these characters, even when they're making some seriously bad choices. Gameplay-wise, it's got that nice balance between action and story. Sure, there are shootouts and car chases, but I think what got me hooked was how well-paced it all felt. It doesn't rush you. The combat feels more polished this time around too. And the driving? I never thought I'd say this, but driving those old-school cars was actually fun. Mad Max. So, I recently had the chance to spend some time with Mad Max, and let me tell you, it's an experience that truly stands out. The game captures the raw, gritty essence of the Mad Max universe so well that it feels like you're right in the heart of that post-apocalyptic wasteland. One of the first things that hit me was the attention to detail in the environment. The desolate landscapes and towering sandstorms are crafted with such precision that they almost feel alive. It's like every corner of the world has a story to tell, and exploring it becomes an adventure in itself. Upgrading and customizing your car, the magnum opus, is an absolute blast. There's something incredibly satisfying about tearing through enemies with a fully upgraded, heavily armed vehicle. And the thrill of high-speed chases and explosive battles really keeps you on the edge of your seat. The narrative is another strong point. Max's journey, filled with intense personal struggles and high-stakes encounters, is engaging from start to finish. It's not just about surviving, it's about finding purpose in a world that's gone mad. The characters you meet along the way, each with their own quirks and backstories, add depth to the story. What's more, the game does a great job of balancing action with exploration. There's always something to discover, whether it's hidden loot, side quests, or just interesting details in the environment. It encourages you to take your time and really soak in the world around you. The combat mechanics are solid. Plague Tale: Innocence. This is one of those games that really sticks with you long after you put down the controller. Have you ever started a game and almost immediately felt transported into a different world? That's what this game does. It's not just about the mechanics or the graphics. It's the story and the atmosphere that completely pull you in. Set during the 14th century, the game centers around a young girl, Amicia, and her little brother Hugo. From the start, you feel this sense of urgency, danger, and dread. I think what makes it special is the bond between the siblings. It's emotional. You genuinely feel Amicia's protective instinct for her brother, and it brings out this unique side of gameplay, where it's not just about survival, but about care and responsibility. The world itself is both beautiful and horrifying at the same time. I mean, yes, it's grim, the plague is spreading, the Inquisition is ruthless, and rats are everywhere. Seriously, if you hate rats, this game will challenge that. But the art direction is so stunning. I'd find myself just pausing to admire a landscape or the light filtering through a ruined building, even though I knew danger was everywhere. It's these little moments of beauty that make the darker, scarier elements hit even harder. What I found refreshing about Plague Tale is how it combines puzzle solving, stealth, and storytelling so seamlessly. You're not just mindlessly fighting enemies. Instead, you're constantly thinking, strategizing, and using your environment to your advantage. Far Cry 4. It's one of those games that really sticks with you. Right from the start, you're thrown into this beautiful yet chaotic Himalayan country called Kyrat, and boom, there's Pagan Min, the villain you'll love to hate. He's charming in the most unsettling way, and I just couldn't get enough of his weird charisma. Honestly, he steals the show every time he's on screen. But beyond the story, what really drew me in was Kyrat itself. The world is just stunning. You've got these towering mountains, lush valleys, rivers, and temples scattered everywhere. I found myself getting lost in the world, not just doing missions, but just exploring, climbing cliffs, gliding off with a wingsuit, or hunting animals to upgrade my gear. It's one of those open-world games where every corner has something to discover, and it just makes the world feel alive. Now, the gameplay is so fun. You can tackle situations however you want, and for me, that meant switching between stealthy bow kills and, riding elephants into enemy outposts like a madman. Seriously, who doesn't love charging through a camp on an elephant? And the wildlife itself adds a whole other level of unpredictability. I've lost count of how many times I was sneaking up on an enemy, only for a tiger or bear to crash the party and wreak havoc. The missions are great too, especially the ones involving the Golden Path. You get to make decisions that affect the revolution you're part of, and they're not always black and white. I liked that it made you think about the consequences. All in all, Far Cry 4 is just packed with stuff to do. Resident Evil 2 Remake. Just have to say, it's one of those rare gems that genuinely impresses on every level. When Capcom decided to breathe new life into this classic, they didn't just update the graphics, they reimagined the entire experience. From the moment you start the game, the atmosphere grabs you. The detailed environments, the haunting sounds, and the meticulously crafted lighting all work together to create this incredibly immersive experience. It's like stepping back into Raccoon City with a whole new set of eyes. And the characters? Oh man, Leon and Claire are better than ever. Their voice acting feels authentic, their emotions resonate, and you really start to care about their journey. It's so much more than just a survival horror game. It's a story about resilience and courage in the face of unimaginable odds. The gameplay is also top-notch. The over-the-shoulder camera is such a brilliant choice. It adds a layer of tension and immediacy that makes every encounter with a zombie or licker feel intensely personal. And those moments when you're low on ammo, frantically searching for a safe room, they're the stuff of pure adrenaline. What's really impressive is how the remake pays homage to the original while still offering something fresh. The puzzles and level design have been updated, but they maintain the spirit of what made the 1998 version so special. It's like rediscovering an old friend who's now even cooler and more complex. The Crew 2. This is a game that feels like it was made for anyone who's ever looked at a car, plane, or boat and thought, yeah, I could probably do some wild stuff with that. It's not just about driving. It's about the thrill of being unleashed on an enormous open-world playground and turning it into your personal motorsports festival, whether you're tearing through city streets in a hypercar, skimming over water in a speedboat, or pulling off insane aerobatics in a stunt plane. The Crew 2 doesn't just invite you to go big, it practically demands it. This game doesn't hold back when it comes to variety. One moment, you're weaving through traffic in downtown Los Angeles, and the next, you're roaring across the Mississippi River in a powerboat. And the best part? You can switch between vehicles on the fly. It's a seamless transition that adds so much personality to the experience. Want to launch off a mountain in your car, switch midair to a plane, and finish by landing in a river as a boat? The freedom here is absolutely unhinged in the best way possible. The map is massive, covering a condensed version of the United States. It's not just about the size, though. It's about how alive it feels. Highways stretch endlessly, countryside sprawls out invitingly, and cities buzz with a certain kinetic energy. Each location feels distinct, and the way the environments cater to the vehicles you're using is incredibly satisfying. Flying over the Grand Canyon or speeding across the swamps of Florida gives every type of vehicle its time to shine. Monster Hunter Wilds. You know that feeling when you step outside on a crisp, fresh morning and think, today's going to be epic? That's what this game delivers. Every single time you load it up. So here's the thing about Wilds. It's not your typical hack and slash fest where you mindlessly take down monsters. Oh no, this is like survival camping meets adrenaline junkie. Imagine being dropped into these stunning, living ecosystems where every step feels like you're part of something bigger. You're not just hunting monsters, you're living in their world. And let me tell you, it's their world. You're just a heavily armed visitor. The first thing that really hit me was how alive everything feels. Like you're walking through this dense forest and you hear something rustling in the bushes. Your brain immediately goes into overdrive. Is it a tiny critter? A massive beast? Or worst of all, one of those sneaky predators that sees you before you see it? You're constantly scanning the environment, looking for tracks, droppings. Yes, droppings. This game makes you care about monster poop. Or broken trees that scream, something huge came through here. And then, when you do find your target, oh man, buckle up. The monsters in Wilds are not here to make you feel like a hero. They're big, terrifying, and absolutely majestic in how they move and fight. One moment, you're feeling all smug, thinking, I got this. And the next, you're rolling out of the way as a winged nightmare tries to turn you into a pancake. Portal 2, one of the smartest, funniest, and most satisfying games out there. I mean, if you've ever wondered what it's like to solve complex puzzles while being gently or not so gently insulted by an AI, this is the game to play. From the moment you wake up, you know you're in for a unique experience. You play as Chell, this silent character stuck in a strange, abandoned science facility, and your main tool is this incredible portal gun. With it, you can create 2 connected portals on certain surfaces, letting you move through them in ways that feel almost magical. The whole concept of thinking with portals is amazing because it forces you to look at puzzles in a totally different way. What I love about Portal 2 is how it gradually ramps up the challenge. At first, it's simple stuff, figuring out where to place portals to get from point A to point B. But then they throw in all these wild mechanics like tractor beams, light bridges, and these crazy gels that speed you up or make you bounce. It's like each level is teaching you to think bigger, get more creative, and really push the limits of what's possible with just portals. The best part, though, has to be the co-op mode. Portal 2 lets you team up with a friend, and it's an absolute blast. You play as 2 adorable robots, and the puzzles are designed around the idea of working together. It's hilarious, challenging, and such a great way to test your teamwork. If you're into smart puzzles, and a game that constantly surprises you, Portal 2 is an absolute must-play. The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I know this game stirred up a lot of heated discussions when it dropped, but let's be real, some of the hate was totally overblown. First off, people were divided right from the start due to the story direction. Without getting into spoilers, it's safe to say that the game took some big narrative risk. Naughty Dog didn't just play it safe with this one. They were like, nah, we're going all in. And while some fans weren't ready for those changes, that's exactly what makes the game bold. It wasn't afraid to challenge your emotions and expectations, and not every game dares to do that. Also, let's not forget how incredible the gameplay and world building are. Whether or not you agree with the story choices, the game is undeniably polished. The combat is intense, the environments are stunning, and the small details make the world feel lived in. Those aspects of the game were universally praised. And for good reason. The AI is surprisingly smart too. Enemies react to your tactics, work together, and even call out to each other by name, which makes it feel way more personal when you're in the thick of it. It adds this extra layer of immersion that's hard to ignore. Ultimately, The Last of Us 2 was unfairly hated by some, but over time, people have started to recognize its strengths. It's one of those games where, once you let go of the preconceived ideas and just take it for what it is, you realize how well crafted and powerful it is. I think a lot of the initial backlash came from the hype and expectations. People had this picture-perfect idea of what a sequel should be. Atomic Heart. From the moment you jump into this weird, retro-futuristic Soviet world, you can tell you're in for something totally different. The whole vibe of the game is what grabbed me first. It's like if BioShock and Half-Life had this crazy alternate reality baby. The setting just pulls you in right away. Everything's all shiny and utopian on the surface, but you can feel this eerie tension creeping in. Like something's definitely not right here. The aesthetics? Absolutely stunning. It's got this whole 1950s retro sci-fi look, but it's set in this alternate version of the USSR where technology advanced in these weird, unsettling ways. Robots everywhere. And they're not your friendly, helpful kind either. As you're exploring, you've got this constant sense of, okay, when's the next crazy thing gonna try and kill me? It keeps you on edge, but in a fun way. Combat is intense, but super satisfying. You've got all these cool weapons, and then you mix in these crazy powers you can use with your left hand. It's like you're blasting enemies with a shotgun in one hand while using telekinesis or freezing them with your other hand. The mix of gunplay and abilities just feels so smooth and fluid. And let me tell you, when you finally master the combo system, you feel like a total badass. The enemies are really something too. You've got these creepy humanoid robots with weird, unsettling movements, and then there are the more bizarre, out there designs that look like something out of a fever dream. Dark Souls Remastered. This game is an undeniable classic, rebuilt to remind players why it's become a benchmark for challenging, rewarding gameplay. It throws you into a grim and mysterious world where every encounter, every decision, and every step feels meaningful. This isn't just a game you play, it's a test of patience, skill, and determination. Combat is at the core of Dark Souls Remastered, and it's an art form here. It's all about timing, precision, and understanding your enemies. Every swing of a sword, every block with your shield, and every dodge roll feels deliberate. The game doesn't hand you easy wins. Instead, it challenges you to learn its rhythms and grow as a player. Defeating an enemy after a tough battle feels like a genuine accomplishment, and that sense of achievement never fades, no matter how many times you experience it. Exploration is another highlight. The interconnected world is full of hidden paths, shortcuts, and secrets that reward players who pay attention to their surroundings. It's not a linear journey, and you're encouraged to venture off the beaten path. Whether you're descending into a dark and eerie cave or ascending a crumbling tower, every area feels distinct and filled with its own challenges. The game's upgrade system is as deep as the world itself. It gives you the freedom to shape your character into the fighter you want to be. Whether you prefer to wield massive swords, master powerful spells, or outmaneuver your enemies with light weapons. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. From the very beginning, you're dropped into this massive open world, and it's completely up to you what to do next. No hand-holding, no strict path, just pure, unfiltered exploration. One of the coolest things about Breath of the Wild is the sense of freedom. You see a mountain way off in the distance? You can climb it. You spot a random little forest on your way to a shrine? Go explore it. You might find a secret or even stumble on a side quest. And the game rewards you for being curious. Everywhere you go, there's something hidden, some surprise, some little detail that makes you feel like the developers thought of everything. And speaking of surprises, the physics and chemistry systems in this game are unreal. You can use the environment to solve puzzles in ways that feel totally unique to you, like if you're clever enough, you can create crazy solutions to puzzles that don't even feel right. But the game encourages that. You can even use metal weapons to attract lightning during storms or set grass on fire to create updrafts for your glider. It's like a sandbox that's just begging you to mess around and get creative. And let's not forget the combat. It's challenging, but in a really rewarding way. You don't just mindlessly hack and slash. You need to time your dodges, be aware of your surroundings, and think about your strategy. The weapon durability system is a hot topic, but honestly, it adds to that survival feel. You're encouraged to experiment with different weapons and tactics, which keeps things interesting. Street Fighter VI. First off, this game doesn't just toss you into the action and say, good luck. It genuinely wants you to succeed. There's an entire suite of tools designed to help you get better at the game, whether you're a complete newbie or a seasoned pro. From the controls to the tutorials, everything feels approachable without ever dumbing it down. It's a game that respects your time and your willingness to learn. And honestly, that's pretty refreshing in a genre that can sometimes feel intimidating. It's got that classic Street Fighter DNA, but with just enough new twists to make it feel fresh and exciting. Every punch, kick, and fireball feels like it packs a serious punch. The roster of fighters is stacked with returning legends and new faces that each bring something unique to the table. It's not just about picking your favorite character. It's about finding one that feels like an extension of your playstyle. Whether you like to get up close and personal or keep your distance with flashy moves, there's someone here for you. Oh, and the combos? They're ridiculously satisfying to pull off. There's nothing quite like stringing together a sequence of moves, landing a perfect counter, and then watching the results play out in slow motion. It's the kind of thing that makes you feel like a fighting game genius, even if you're just mashing buttons half the time. Whether you're honing your skills, customizing your character, or jumping online for some friendly or not so friendly competition, there's always something to do. Helldivers 2. Now, this game is a follow-up to the original Helldivers, which had a strong cult following. It's all about cooperative, top-down, tactical shooting, but with a pretty unique twist. It's brutally difficult. However, Helldivers 2 has gotten some hate for being too punishing, or for having gameplay mechanics that can feel overwhelming, especially for new players. One of the biggest complaints is how unforgiving it can be. Friendly fire is always on, which means you can accidentally or not so accidentally kill your teammates during missions. And believe me, this happens a lot. It's a game that forces you to be super careful, and not everyone is down for that level of intensity. The steep learning curve and lack of hand-holding also rubbed some players the wrong way, especially those who were expecting something more casual. Another thing that got some pushback was the game's structure. Missions can feel repetitive after a while, and if you're playing solo, the game is an entirely different experience, and not always in a good way. It's built around cooperative play, so going in alone can make it feel more frustrating than fun. But here's the thing. If you're into tactical shooters and have a squad to play with, Helldivers 2 is an absolute blast. The chaos that comes from trying to coordinate with your teammates while dodging enemy fire and calling in reinforcements makes for some seriously intense moments. The variety of weapons, gear, and strategies you can use makes each mission feel dynamic, and the constant threat of messing up keeps the tension high. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This game is like a massive playground of imagination. I'll start by saying that if you're a fan of eye-popping visuals, crazy weapons, and charming characters, this is a must-play. Right from the start, you're thrown into this super vibrant animated world. And when I say vibrant, I mean vibrant. The visuals here are insane. It's honestly like playing through a Pixar movie. The combat is chef's kiss. You have this insane arsenal of weapons, and each one is wilder than the last. I mean, only Ratchet and Clank could come up with weapons like a gun that turns enemies into plants. That's right, you can go full botanist on some evil aliens. There's this fun balance where you have to keep switching weapons, and because they're all so unique, combat never feels repetitive. Plus, upgrading them is addicting. You're always excited to see what ridiculous upgrade you'll unlock next. The game somehow keeps you on your toes, thinking, okay, what can I do next to make this even crazier? And let's talk rifts for a second, because they're just so clever. You've got these dimensional portals that let you zip around the battlefield or enter totally new areas in seconds. It's like a whole new way of moving and exploring, and it makes the game feel like nothing else out there. Plus, there's this thrill in zipping through dimensions without a single loading screen. It's a mechanic that's so fresh, it almost feels like you're playing an action movie, where every second keeps you glued to the screen. Rift Apart is perfect for players of all ages. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. This game is just pure fun. I thought Insomniac nailed it with the first game, but playing as Miles? It's like they cranked up the cool factor. From the moment you start swinging through the city, you feel that difference in Miles' style compared to Peter. He'd got that younger, more energetic vibe, and the way he moves those little spins and tricks mid-swing just makes it so satisfying to swing around New York. The story got so much heart. You can really feel the weight on Miles' shoulders, trying to live up to Peter's legacy, while figuring out what kind of Spider-Man he wants to be. He's got this personal connection to Harlem, too, and that adds a really nice, grounded layer to everything. It's not just about saving the city. It's about protecting his community, his friends, his family. I felt way more connected to his journey because of that. Plus, the combat is so slick. Those Venom powers, absolute game changers. It never got old to just zap a group of enemies with a Venom punch and watch them go flying, and combining that with his stealth abilities made for some really fun, creative fights. I'd go from sneaking around, taking out enemies one by one, to just leaping into the fray and unleashing chaos with his electricity. The combat just flows so well, and it's super satisfying to pull off those combos. Even though it's a shorter game compared to the first one, I honestly didn't mind. It felt like the perfect length for Miles' story, and I loved every second of it. Disco Elysium. This isn't your typical video game. There are no epic boss fights, no laser-shooting guns, and no saving the world from a galaxy-ending threat. What you get instead is a deeply personal, weirdly hilarious, and sometimes emotional journey that sticks with you long after the credits roll. The premise is simple. You wake up as a detective with the world's worst hangover and zero memory of who you are or what you're supposed to be doing. Oh, and there's a murder to solve. But trust me, it's so much more than just a crime story. This is a game about choices, messy, chaotic, and completely human choices. And the best part, it never judges you for them. In most games, failing means you reload your last save and try again. Not here. In Disco Elysium, failing is just another part of the story. Maybe you'll bungle an interrogation, or maybe your attempt at a dramatic speech will turn into an awkward disaster. Either way, the game rolls with it, and often, the failures lead to some of the funniest or most touching moments. The way the game handles morality and themes is another standout. It's not about being a good or bad detective. It's about being your detective. You can play as a bumbling fool, a philosophical genius, or even a complete mess of contradictions. And the game never forces you into a box. It's about exploring who you are in this broken world. And trust me, some of the outcomes from your choices are hilarious. If you're up for a journey that's more about the questions than the answers, give this game a shot. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. The moment you step into the new content, it feels different, like you've entered a darker, stranger, and somehow even more intimidating part of the world. If the lands between were a fever dream, Shadow of the Erdtree is a full-on nightmare, but, like, the kind you don't want to wake up from because it's just too cool. Combat is as tight and brutal as ever. Whether you're a die-hard melee player, a magic enthusiast, or a mix of both, there are new weapons, spells, and builds to experiment with. I found myself tweaking my character constantly, trying out new strategies for every encounter. It's that classic From Software loop of getting crushed, learning, adjusting, and finally triumphing that makes the whole experience so addictive. And the bosses? Let's just say they're not here to play. They're here to humble you, to make you question every decision you've ever made as a gamer. But at the same time, they're incredible. Each one feels like its own mini-story, with designs and movesets that are as much a spectacle as they are a challenge. There's nothing quite like the adrenaline rush of finally figuring out that perfect dodge timing or landing the killing blow after a 15-minute duel. It's frustrating in the best way possible. But it's not just about the bosses. The enemies scattered throughout this expansion are no joke either. They're relentless, weird, and occasionally terrifying. One moment I was admiring the scenery, the next I was getting ambushed by some unholy abomination I couldn't even describe if I tried. It's classic Elden Ring chaos, and I love it. Cuphead. It's a game that doesn't hold your hand. Instead, it hands you a pair of gloves and says, "All right, let's see what you've got." So, what's the deal with Cuphead? Well, it's all about boss battles. Big, bold, over-the-top showdowns that'll push your skills to the limit. Each encounter is completely unique, filled with crazy attacks, patterns you have to learn, and that sweet moment of triumph when you finally get it right. And trust me, those victories feel earned. This game doesn't hand them out like candy. The gameplay is fast, precise, and oh so satisfying. You'll be dodging, jumping, and shooting your way through a series of increasingly difficult fights, all while trying to keep track of what's happening on screen. And there's a lot happening on screen. But that's part of the fun. It's all about staying focused, learning the patterns, and figuring out how to outsmart each boss. One thing that really stands out is the variety. You're not just fighting the same type of boss over and over again. Each one feels like its own mini-event, with unique designs and attacks that keep you on your toes. One minute, you're dodging projectiles in a traditional platforming setup, and the next, you're flying through the air in a shoot-'em-up. It's this constant change of pace that keeps the game so engaging. And let's not forget about the co-op mode. Playing with a friend adds a whole new dynamic to the chaos, as you both work together to take down these larger-than-life foes. It's teamwork at its most frantic and fun. Dishonored 2. It's like stepping into a living painting where every corner has its own story. One of the things I really appreciated was how they expanded on the original game's mechanics. The new powers are incredibly fun to use. For instance, Emily's ability to manipulate time is a game changer. I found myself replaying levels just to experiment with different ways to use her powers. It's like the game gives you a playground for your creativity. Corvo's powers are just as thrilling as ever. but they've added a nice twist with his new abilities. The flexibility in gameplay is fantastic. Whether you prefer stealth or going in with all guns blazing, the game supports both playstyles seamlessly. It's amazing how each mission can be approached in so many different ways. I spent hours just replaying levels to see how different strategies panned out. The story itself, absolutely gripping. The dual perspectives of Emily and Corvo offer such a fresh take on the narrative. I loved seeing how their choices and actions impacted the world around them. It's impressive how the game manages to weave personal stories with broader political intrigue. Also, the character interactions were top-notch. It felt like the NPCs actually had a life of their own, reacting to your choices and changing their behavior accordingly. It made the world feel more dynamic and alive. I found myself genuinely invested in the characters and their fates. If I had to nitpick, there were a few bugs here and there, but nothing that really detracted from the overall experience. Outlast 2. The game is a wild, terrifying ride from start to finish. It takes the creepy factor and dials it up so high you're constantly on edge. If you thought the first Outlast was scary, this one's here to remind you it can always get worse. First off, Outlast 2 does something amazing with its setting. You're dropped into this isolated backwoods area that feels like it's completely detached from the rest of the world. The story has you playing as Blake Langerman, a cameraman looking for answers about a mysterious murder, and, of course, you're not exactly welcomed with open arms. One thing I really love about Outlast 2 is how it forces you to use your camera to survive. You're relying on it for night vision in pitch-black areas. But here's the kicker. The battery drains so fast. There's this constant panic about running out of juice. And when you hear something moving in the darkness, that dread just skyrockets. It's a beautiful kind of torture. Honestly, the camera itself feels like a character because you're always thinking about it, babying it, just hoping the battery lasts through the next nightmare. And when the camera dies in a dark place, pure terror. But it's not just about being scared. Outlast 2 does such a great job at making you feel helpless. There's no fighting back, no weapons, no hero moment where you suddenly become this badass. Nope, it's all about running, hiding, and surviving. You have to pick your hiding spots carefully, crouch through cornfields, dive under beds, and hope nobody finds you. Every noise feels like a threat. Amnesia Rebirth. What really sets Rebirth apart is how it handles fear. You're not some invincible hero with a shotgun. You're vulnerable, fragile even. And that's what makes every decision feel so important. Do you light that match now to see what's ahead? Or do you save it for later when you might really need it? These are the kinds of choices that keep you constantly engaged. The puzzles are another highlight. They're not just there to slow you down or fill time. They're meaningful. They're tied into the world in ways that make you think, this makes sense here. It's never just about pulling a lever or finding a key. It's about understanding your surroundings, piecing things together, and figuring out how to keep moving forward while the world seems to crumble around you. You'll go from tight, claustrophobic spaces that make you feel like the walls are closing in to wide, open areas that somehow manage to feel even more terrifying because of how exposed you are. It keeps you guessing and constantly on edge, never knowing what's waiting for you around the corner or in the dark. But here's the kicker. Rebirth isn't just about scaring you. It's about pulling you into an experience where the fear feels earned. It's a game that challenges you to face the unknown, to confront your own unease, and to push forward even when everything in you is screaming to turn back. So, if you're looking for a horror game that goes beyond the surface, that doesn't just want to startle you, but truly unsettle you, Amnesia, Rebirth is absolutely worth your time. Dragon's Dogma 2. After playing this game, I have to say it really exceeded my expectations. I mean, I was excited going in, sure, but once I actually got my hands on it, I realized just how much Capcom stepped up their game. Everything feels bigger, better, and more immersive than the first one. First off, the world is massive. I remember just wandering around for hours, not even on a quest, just exploring. The sense of adventure is so strong here. Every corner of the map feels like it has something interesting to uncover. Whether it's a hidden cave, a random group of enemies, or just a breathtaking view, you always feel like you're discovering something new. The combat, though, that's where the game shines. It's fast, fluid, and really customizable. I spent so much time tweaking my character's build, trying out different classes. One moment I was a nimble strider, darting around enemies, and the next I was a towering warrior smashing through everything. Every fight feels dynamic, especially with the new monster encounters. Those big hulking creatures, they're no joke. Climbing onto their backs mid-fight is such a rush. But what I loved most was the pawn system. They've really refined it. My pawn wasn't just a sidekick, they were essential. I grew so attached to them, seeing how they adapted to my playstyle. Sometimes I felt like they were learning faster than I was. It's cool to see your pawn in someone else's game too. I got some great items because other players were borrowing mine and leveling them up. Need for Speed Unbound, a high-octane ride that throws you right into the heart of street racing with an unmistakable attitude. The focus is all about the thrill of the chase, the rush of the win, and the risk you're willing to take to make a name for yourself in a city that never stops moving. The gameplay is a perfect mix of adrenaline-pumping races, high-stakes police chases, and strategic planning. It's not just about crossing the finish line first, it's about how you get there. Do you take the riskier shortcuts, or do you play it safe and stick to the main road? Every race feels like a gamble, and the rewards always feel worth it. Winning is great, but outsmarting cops in a high-speed pursuit? That's a different kind of rush. Customization is where Unbound really shines. This game gives you the tools to create a car that's truly yours. It's not just about slapping on a coat of paint and calling it a day. You can tweak, upgrade, and style your ride to match your vibe. Whether you're going for sleek and stealthy or loud and flashy, the options feel endless, and every adjustment makes your car feel like an extension of your personality. The races are intense and unpredictable, with a variety of events that keep things fresh. There's a sense of progression that feels earned as you climb the ranks, build your rep, and unlock better rides. The competition is fierce, but that's part of the fun. The game is a love letter to speed, style, and rebellion. Dead Space Remake, a game that completely revitalized a classic survival horror experience and honestly deserved a shot at Game of the Year. The original Dead Space was already a masterpiece, but the remake took it to another level, with modern graphics, tighter gameplay, and some amazing quality-of-life improvements. It was like stepping back into a nightmare, but with 4K visuals and even more horrifying details. First off, the atmosphere in the Dead Space remake was next level. The USG Ishimura felt more alive and dead than ever. Every creak, every shadow, and every flickering light just added to that sense of dread. The developers did an incredible job preserving what made the original so terrifying, while also cranking up the immersion. They rebuilt the whole game from the ground up, and it showed in how polished the environments were. The lighting alone made certain sections feel way scarier than before, like you're always one step away from something terrible. But here's the thing. While the Dead Space remake was stunning and faithful to its source material, some people argued that it didn't do enough to push the genre forward, which is probably why it didn't take home the Game of the Year trophy. It was a fantastic remake, but it stayed close to the original's formula, which, for some, felt more like a tribute than a bold new experience. But here's the bottom line. The Dead Space remake did exactly what it set out to do, remind us why this franchise is one of the best in survival horror. The fact that it didn't win Game of the Year doesn't take away from the fact that it was one of the most polished and terrifying games of 2023. Halo Infinite. This game pulls you right into the heart of what makes Halo such a beloved franchise, while also taking bold steps to evolve the series in new and exciting ways. It's all about blending classic Halo action with modern gameplay elements, and it does so in a way that feels fresh, yet familiar. The gameplay is where this title shines brightest. The combat is fluid, responsive, and endlessly satisfying. Whether you're dual-wielding an arsenal of futuristic weapons or taking down enemies with precision strikes, the gunplay is top tier. The grapple shot, a new addition to the series, changes the way you approach every encounter. It's not just a tool, it's a game changer. You can zip across the battlefield, snag weapons from afar, or use it to close the gap for a devastating melee attack. It's one of those mechanics that feels natural right away, but opens up a ton of creative options as you get more comfortable with it. The open-world design is a major shift for the series, and it's handled with care. Instead of guiding you down a set path, Halo Infinite gives you the freedom to explore. You'll find enemy outposts, hidden collectibles, and opportunities for some epic vehicle combat scattered across the map. The world feels alive, and every encounter is a chance to experiment with different tactics. Driving a Warthog with a squad of Marines, or taking the skies in a Banshee, feels just as thrilling as ever. One of the standout features is how dynamic the battles feel. Enemies adapt to your strategies. Vehicles explode in glorious fashion. Dark Souls 3. This game is like a test of your patience, skill, and determination, but in the most rewarding way. It's tough, no doubt about it, but that's what makes it so satisfying. If you're into games that push you, Dark Souls 3 is an experience you won't forget. First off, the world. The atmosphere in this game is just something else. Every area feels heavy with history. Like the ruins and castles you walk through have seen centuries of battles and chaos. There's this haunting beauty to it, you know? You're walking through these desolate, crumbling places, but at the same time, they're gorgeous. It really pulls you in, like you just want to explore every corner, even if it means getting your ass kicked. And speaking of getting your ass kicked, the combat. Man, it's brutal. But once you get the hang of it, it's like a dance. You can't just go in swinging like in other games. Timing, dodging, and learning your enemy's moves are key. Every fight, whether it's a basic enemy or one of those insane bosses, feels like a challenge that you're either going to conquer or get humbled by. One thing I love about Dark Souls 3 is how it respects you as a player. It doesn't hold your hand or give you a bunch of tutorials. You're just thrown into this dark, dangerous world and expected to figure it out. At first, it's super intimidating, but you start picking up on little things. The lore, how the world is connected, the strategies you need to survive. It's almost like you're part of a secret club where you learn by trial and error, and the payoff is huge. Batman Arkham Knight. If you're into Batman even a little bit, this one really delivers. It's the final entry in the Arkham series, so there's a lot riding on it. And let me tell you, it wraps things up in the most satisfying way. First off, the gameplay. You're not just playing as Batman, you're feeling like Batman. The fluid combat, the way you can string together attacks, counters, gadgets. It's also smooth. Honestly, once you get the hang of it, you feel like a superhero, effortlessly taking down waves of thugs. It's like the perfect balance of tactical and badass. And then there's Gotham City. I mean, this is the Gotham I've always imagined. The atmosphere is spot on. Rain pouring down, neon lights reflecting off the streets, all with that dark, brooding vibe. It's eerie, but alive, if that makes sense. The city feels like it's its own character. Plus, the freedom to glide through the skyline or hop in the Batmobile just makes you feel like you own the place. Speaking of the Batmobile, I know people have mixed feelings about it, but come on, it's the freaking Batmobile. The controls can be a bit clunky at first, but once you get used to it, it's pretty fun blasting through the streets or shifting into battle mode. It adds a new dimension to the game, especially with those tank battles, even though they can get repetitive after a while. The story is where Arkham Knight really shines for me. Without spoiling too much, it's got everything. A psychological thriller, action-packed moments, and that emotional depth you wouldn't expect from a superhero game. Yakuza 6. This game throws you straight into the heart of Kamurocho and the serene beauty of Onomichi, blending the chaotic energy of urban life with the peaceful charm of a small seaside town. It's the kind of game that's packed with personality, letting you dive deep into a world brimming with colorful characters, wild side activities, and plenty of fist-flying action. The combat in Yakuza 6 is a thing of beauty. It's fast, fluid, and packed with over-the-top moves that make every punch and kick feel satisfying. Whether you're brawling with a group of street punks or taking on a tougher challenge in a back alley, the game gives you all the tools to dominate the fight. You can pick up just about anything in the environment, a bike, a sign, even a street cone, and use it to deliver bone-crunching hits that are as brutal as they are hilarious. The seamless transition into combat makes every encounter feel organic, keeping the pace high and the action engaging. Outside of the fights, Yakuza 6 is a playground of activities. This game knows how to keep you entertained when you're not chasing down objectives. There's a fully functional karaoke minigame that lets you belt out tunes in rhythm-based fun. You can hit up a batting cage for a quick home run derby, stop by an arcade to play classic Sega games, or even spend time managing your own cat cafe. Yes, a cat cafe. It's all about variety, and this game delivers in spades. One of the standout features is the clan creator mode. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Now, I know a lot of us have waited years to see more of Pandora since the original Avatar movie. Whether you loved it for its visuals, the unique world, or just getting lost in this strange, immersive place. Well, here's the perfect excuse to dive back in and actually be in Pandora, not just watching it on a screen. The cool thing is, You're not just wandering around as a tourist. This is your home, and as you're exploring, you get this real sense of belonging. The way they've crafted the interactions with the world and other Na'vi characters just pulls you into the story. It's personal and really touches on that classic theme of connecting to nature, but on a whole new level. Combat-wise, it's balanced in a way that makes you feel powerful, yet still in tune with the environment. The Na'vi weaponry isn't just about brute force. It's more graceful, blending seamlessly with nature. It's not like you're there to destroy, but rather defend and protect, which gives a nice sense of purpose to every fight. And honestly, if you're into exploration, you're going to have a blast. Pandora's open-world setup lets you go off the main path, uncovering hidden spots that tell little stories of their own. It's the kind of game where you don't mind getting lost, because there's always something breathtaking to discover. So yeah, if you're looking for a game that's both visually stunning and has depth, give this one a shot. It's the kind of experience that'll stick with you long after you've turned off the console. Elden Ring. If you love a good challenge and want to lose yourself in a beautifully crafted world, this game is a must-play. The open-world design is just jaw-dropping. It's not your typical open world where you're just running from quest marker to quest marker. In Elden Ring, exploration feels so organic. You'll be wandering through this desolate field, and suddenly you'll stumble upon some hidden cave or a massive fortress in the distance, and you just have to go check it out. Every corner of the world feels alive with mystery, danger, and treasures waiting to be uncovered. The game doesn't hold your hand at all, which I love. There's no obvious path to follow. You just go wherever your curiosity takes you. It's refreshing to play a game where the world itself is the real draw, not just the quest or the story. You never know what you'll run into, and trust me, the surprises are both thrilling and terrifying. Combat, as you'd expect from a From Software game, is tough but fair. Every enemy can mess you up if you're not careful. But when you finally take down that huge boss after hours of struggling, the sense of accomplishment is so worth it. It's got that classic risk-reward system, where you're constantly weighing your decisions. Do you keep pushing forward with low health, risking all your runes, or do you play it safe and return to a site of grace? That tension makes every encounter feel meaningful. The bosses? Oh man, they're something else. Each one feels like a huge event. Some are these towering, monstrous creatures, while others are more human-sized. Titanfall 2. If you haven't jumped into this game yet, you're in for a treat because it's one of those rare shooters that nails everything from movement to story. You're not just running and gunning here. Titanfall 2 turns you into a parkour expert, with wall running, double jumping, and slides that let you weave through the battlefield like a pro. The controls are smooth, and once you get the hang of it, it's hard to go back to other games. The map designs are built around this movement too, encouraging you to think creatively about how to get from point A to point B. There's something so satisfying about stringing together a perfect series of moves to outmaneuver enemies, and every match feels like you're pulling off action movie stunts. And then there are the Titans. If you ever wanted to pilot a giant mech, Titanfall 2 makes that dream come true. The game balances your time between playing as a pilot, the fast, agile soldier, and then calling down your Titan, which adds this completely new layer to the gameplay. Titans are powerful, heavy-hitting, and give you this awesome sense of being a walking tank. But it's not just a button mash fest. Every Titan has unique abilities and weapons, so there's actually a good bit of strategy involved. One thing that really stands out in Titanfall 2 is the campaign. Now, I know campaigns in first-person shooters can sometimes feel like a warm-up for multiplayer, but here it's a full experience on its own. It's well-paced, exciting, and even throws in some surprises that keep things fresh. Death Stranding, one of the most divisive games out there. When this game dropped, it was like half the gaming community loved it, and the other half was just like, what is this? It's a Hideo Kojima game, so you know it was going to be unique. But Death Stranding took that to a whole new level. Instead of fast-paced action or combat-heavy gameplay, you're a delivery guy in a post-apocalyptic world. It's a game about walking, hiking, and, yes, carrying boxes. People were super confused by the whole concept, especially because the marketing was so mysterious. The trailers didn't really explain much, and when players realized they'd be spending a lot of time delivering packages across desolate landscapes, some were disappointed. It wasn't the action-packed game people expected from the creator of Metal Gear Solid. But here's where the game shines. Death Stranding isn't trying to be a traditional game. It's about the journey, the connections you make, and the feeling of isolation in a broken world. And if you get into that mindset, the game is really something special. It's strangely relaxing, even though it has some seriously intense moments. The way it handles the idea of connecting players, allowing you to help out others in the world by leaving equipment or building structures, was pretty innovative. It made the world feel shared, even though it's a single-player game. Sure, it's not for everyone. If you're looking for constant action, Death Stranding might not be your cup of tea, but if you're in the mood for something different, something that really takes its time to build atmosphere, it's a game that delivers a unique experience. Metro Exodus. This game is something else. If you're into immersive worlds with deep storytelling, this one's going to grab you right from the start. I remember jumping in, and immediately, I felt like I was actually there, trudging through the post-apocalyptic Russian wasteland, feeling every bit of that bleak, yet oddly beautiful atmosphere. What's really cool about Metro Exodus is how it takes the series from the underground tunnels and opens it up to these massive open areas without losing that signature claustrophobic tension. You still get those tight, nerve-wracking moments where you're creeping through dark, creepy tunnels. But now, you also have these wide-open spaces that make you feel a sense of freedom and danger at the same time. There's something about walking through a desolate, snowy wasteland and then hearing the distant howl of a mutant that gets your heart racing. Artyom's journey is such an emotional one. He's not just trying to survive. He's out there searching for hope, for a place where humanity can rebuild. You can feel how much this means to him and his crew. That bond between them, especially with his wife Anna, really hit me. You're not just a lone wolf. You've got a family, a team that cares for each other, and that gives everything this extra layer of tension. You want to protect them, to keep them safe. You've got to constantly think about how you're using your resources. Do you craft more ammo, or do you focus on a new gas mask filter because the radiation's about to kill you? That balance adds a lot of strategy to the game. Alan Wake 2. If you played the first game, you probably already know how trippy things can get, but this sequel, it cranks up that eerie, psychological horror vibe to a whole new level. It's like being stuck in a thriller novel that keeps messing with your head. And I mean that in the best possible way. So, right off the bat, the atmosphere in this game is incredible. Every location feels drenched in mystery and dread. Whether you're walking through dark forests, creepy small towns, or abandoned buildings, there's this constant tension in the air, like something's always lurking just out of sight. It's not just about jump scares, though. It's that slow, creeping sense of unease that really gets under your skin. The game does such a good job of making you feel like you're never truly safe. The story? Man, it's deep. It's a blend of supernatural horror, psychological thriller, and just straight-up weirdness. You're dealing with Alan's mind unraveling, and reality itself starts to bend and twist around you. There are moments where you're not sure what's real, what's in his head, or what's being written into existence. It's this constant mind game that keeps you hooked. And what I love is how the game doesn't spoon-feed you answers. You're piecing together this puzzle, and it feels so satisfying when things click, or get even weirder. Combat is another high point. The whole flashlight and gun mechanic from the first game is back, but it's more refined this time around. You're constantly managing light and darkness. Control. I remember starting it and thinking, okay, this looks interesting, but it just keeps getting weirder in the best possible way. You play as Jesse Faden, who walks into this super-secret government building called the Federal Bureau of Control, and from there, things get strange. The whole game is set inside this massive, brutalist-style building called the Oldest House, and it's full of supernatural events, shifting walls, floating people. You've got this crazy service weapon that shifts between different forms, like a pistol that can turn into a shotgun or a sniper rifle. And then there's the telekinesis. Throwing objects at enemies with your mind never gets old. I remember picking up desks, chunks of concrete, even explosive canisters, and just launching them at enemies. It's so satisfying. And as you level up, you get more abilities like levitating, creating shields, and even mind-controlling enemies. It makes every battle feel dynamic because you've got all these powers to mess around with. The game also nails the whole mind-bending thing. The environments constantly shift and change. There's this one part, the ashtray maze, that had me completely blown away. It's like this surreal, almost psychedelic level where the walls and floors are shifting, and you're just flying through it, blasting enemies, while this killer rock soundtrack plays. So yeah, Control is one of those games that feels totally unique. It's got this perfect mix of supernatural weirdness, awesome combat, and a mystery that keeps pulling you deeper. Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2. This game takes everything you might expect from a grounded medieval experience and deepens it into something uniquely authentic and immersive. It's not about fantasy or larger-than-life legends. It's about the grit, struggle, and everyday decisions that define life in a time where survival often hinged on skill, wit, and understanding the world around you. The game focuses on realism in a way that feels deliberate and unapologetic. Combat isn't about swinging wildly or relying on flashy moves. It's technical, calculated, and it demands a level of precision that reflects the era it's portraying. Every strike, block, or dodge feels like a decision, a moment where patience and preparation matter as much as raw skill. Weapons and armor don't just look accurate, they function as part of a system that rewards study and strategy over brute force. Villages and towns aren't just backdrops. They feel alive with routines, struggles, and histories that you can choose to engage with or observe from the sidelines. Every location feels purposeful, every interaction meaningful in shaping your path. The survival elements remain a cornerstone of the experience. Keeping track of your health, hunger, and stamina is a constant reminder that this isn't a world designed to cater to you. Your equipment needs maintenance, your skills need refining, and your choices carry consequences that ripple beyond the immediate moment. There's a tangible sense of effort in everything you do. Ghost Recon Wildlands. It's one of those games that kind of slipped under the radar for a lot of people, but honestly, it's so much fun once you get into it. I mean, the sheer scale of the open world is wild. Bolivia is your playground, and you can literally go anywhere. I remember the first time I jumped in a helicopter and just flew over this huge mountain range, seeing the sprawling landscape below. It's kind of breathtaking, even for an older game. The thing that really stands out, though, is how flexible the gameplay is. You've got this whole squad with you, and you can approach missions in so many different ways. If you're feeling tactical, you can scout out an area with your drone, mark enemies, and silently pick them off one by one. Or you can just go in guns blazing and let the chaos unfold. And I love that both options work. There's no one way to play it. And man, playing co-op with friends, that's where it gets really fun. There's nothing quite like coordinating an attack with your buddies, where everyone's got their role. One person's sniping, another's on the ground sneaking in, and then you're calling in air support. It just makes you feel like a real squad. Of course, it doesn't always go according to plan, and when everything falls apart, it turns into this hilarious mess of trying to escape or salvage the mission. But that's part of the charm, right? I also appreciate how the game doesn't take itself too seriously. Sure, it's got this gritty cartel storyline, but the characters crack jokes, and there are these moments of levity that break up the intensity. The only downside? I guess some missions can get a bit repetitive if you're playing solo for too long. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. A game that feels like a love letter to the roots of the series while bringing something fresh and bold to the table. Movement feels like a dance, fluid, fast-paced, and incredibly rewarding when you string it all together. Sargon isn't just your run-of-the-mill protagonist. He's equipped with an arsenal of moves that make traversal and combat a treat. Whether you're wall running, dodging traps, or leaping across massive gaps, there's a rhythm to it that feels so satisfying. And then there's the combat. Let me tell you, it's not just about hacking and slashing your way through enemies. Every encounter demands strategy. You'll have to master dodges, parries, and combos to succeed. Enemies aren't pushovers. They're smart, they're tough, and they'll make you think on your feet. But that's part of the fun, right? When you finally take down a tricky foe after figuring out their patterns, it's such a rush. One thing that stands out about The Lost Crown is how it balances exploration and combat. The world is layered with secrets and challenges that encourage you to look beyond the obvious. It's not just about moving from point A to point B. It's about figuring out how to get there, what's hidden along the way, and how to overcome obstacles that aren't always straightforward. The game constantly rewards curiosity, and every time you uncover something new, it feels like a win. Speaking of obstacles, the puzzles in this game are no joke. They're clever, varied, and so satisfying to solve. Nightingale. Without giving too much away, Nightingale is set in an alternate Victorian-inspired universe where portals connect you to countless magical realms. These aren't just ordinary portals either. Each one opens up a unique, handcrafted world full of surprises. Whether it's dense forests, eerie swamps, or towering mountains, every realm feels like a whole new adventure waiting to happen. At its heart, Nightingale is a survival game. But it's so much more than that. Sure, you'll be gathering resources, crafting tools, and building shelters, but it never feels repetitive or grindy. The game constantly rewards your curiosity. Wander off the beaten path, and you might stumble upon a hidden ruin, a bizarre creature, or a resource you didn't even know existed. You'll face all kinds of strange and otherworldly beings, from towering giants to mischievous fairies. Each encounter feels unique, and sometimes running is just as valid an option as fighting. There's this constant sense of tension and wonder as you explore, never quite knowing what's around the next corner. One of the coolest aspects of the game is the crafting system. It's deep, but not overwhelming, which is a hard balance to strike. You can craft everything from tools and weapons to elaborate structures. And let me tell you, building in this game is a treat. The structures you can create aren't just functional, they're gorgeous. Whether you're putting together a humble cabin or a sprawling Victorian estate, it always feels satisfying and personal. Resident Evil 6, probably one of the most controversial entries in the Resident Evil series. When it came out, a lot of longtime fans were really disappointed, and it got a ton of hate for straying too far from the classic survival horror roots. One of the big criticisms was that it tried to do too much. The game had 4 separate campaigns, each with its own tone and gameplay style. You had Leon's campaign, which felt more like the traditional Resident Evil survival horror, but then you had Chris's and Jake's campaigns, which were full-on action shooters. It left some players feeling like the game had an identity crisis. It wasn't sure if it wanted to be horror or action, and that split the fanbase. But here's the thing, Resident Evil 6 isn't a bad game. It's just different. If you go in expecting a pure horror experience, yeah, you might be disappointed. But if you approach it as a crazy, action-packed adventure with some horror elements sprinkled in, there's a lot of fun to be had. The variety in the campaigns means there's something for everyone. And the co-op play was a big highlight for people who like playing with friends. And let's be honest, some of the hate was probably just because it wasn't what fans expected after the success of Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5. Those games were a hard act to follow. And RE6 took some big risks. Sure, not all of them landed, but it also had some really cool moments, epic boss battles, and impressive visuals for its time. Despite all the complaints, Resident Evil 6 still has some great moments. Mafia 3. One of the first things you'll notice is how alive New Bordeaux feels. The game nails that late 60s vibe, and I'm talking about the music, the cars, the fashion, even the radio broadcast. It all feels authentic and pulls you right into that era. The city itself is beautifully crafted, with neighborhoods that feel distinct and packed with character. The gameplay is all about strategic takedowns, stealth, and taking control of the city piece by piece. Lincoln doesn't just kick down doors and take names. He's smart about his approach, and you get to choose how to tackle each mission. You can go in guns blazing, but sneaking around and taking out enemies quietly is just as satisfying. Plus, as you start to take control of different territories, you actually build your own little crime empire, assigning lieutenants and gaining perks that make Lincoln even more of a powerhouse. It's a cool twist that makes you feel like you're really shaping the criminal landscape of New Bordeaux. One thing I personally loved about Mafia 3 is how it tackles some serious themes. The game doesn't shy away from the realities of the time. There's racism, corruption, and all kinds of hard truths woven into the storyline. It makes Lincoln's journey feel so much more impactful. You're not just going on missions for the sake of gameplay. You're stepping into his shoes, experiencing the highs and lows, and feeling the weight of what he's fighting for. It gives the story a level of depth that you don't always see in open-world games. A Plague Tale Requiem. It absolutely should have been in the running for Game of the Year, but didn't quite get the recognition it deserved. This sequel took everything great about A Plague Tale: Innocence and cranked it up to a whole new level. The story, the characters, the visuals, it was all so much more intense. And honestly, it hit harder than a lot of people expected. First off, The story in Requiem was a gut punch in the best way. Following Amicia and Hugo's journey through a world ravaged by the plague and the supernatural rat infestation, you could feel the stakes growing as you progressed. What really stood out was the emotional weight of the game. It wasn't just about survival. It was about family, loss, and the lengths you'd go to protect the ones you love. The character development for both Amicia and Hugo was top tier. And by the end, it was impossible not to be emotionally invested in their fate. The game also looked absolutely stunning. The environments were jaw-dropping, whether you were sneaking through crumbling ruins, lush countrysides, or the plague-infested streets. The attention to detail made the world feel alive. Well, as alive as a world overrun by millions of rats can feel. And speaking of the rats, Requiem took the swarming rat mechanic from the first game and made it even crazier. The way they used light and shadow to control and avoid the rats created some of the most tense, nail-biting moments in the game. Another thing to consider is that Requiem came out in 2022, which was a year dominated by games like Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. Horizon Burning Shores. This expansion is everything you'd hope for and more, taking Aloy's journey into an entirely new region filled with challenges, surprises, and jaw-dropping moments, set in a beautifully untamed area that feels wild and alive. It's all about exploring, adapting, and thriving in a world that's as dangerous as it is mesmerizing. The new landscape opens up fresh opportunities for discovery, with terrains that pushed you to think differently about how you approach traversal and combat. The highlight here is the freedom to experiment with the tools and abilities you've built up throughout the main game. The enemies in Burning Shores aren't just there to look intimidating. They're designed to test your skills in exciting ways. New machine types bring unique combat dynamics, keeping you on your toes and forcing you to adapt your strategies. The world design in Burning Shores is deeply immersive, with plenty of areas that invite exploration. Whether you're scaling cliffs, diving into the depths, or navigating open spaces, there's always something fascinating to find. Hidden treasures, mysterious locations, and cleverly placed challenges make every corner of this expansion worth exploring. The variety in the terrain ensures that no two moments feel alike, keeping the experience fresh and engaging from start to finish. The addition of new weapons and gear is another standout feature. These aren't just upgrades, they're game changers that open up creative ways to tackle enemies and solve environmental puzzles. Rise of the Tomb Raider. This game really took me by surprise in the best way possible. I mean, I knew going in it was going to be a solid game, but it actually exceeded my expectations on so many levels. First off, the environments are stunning. Every single location feels meticulously crafted, from the frozen Siberian mountains to the hidden tombs. You really feel like you're on this epic adventure with Lara. I found myself just stopping to take in the views at times, which isn't something I do often in action games. And speaking of action, the combat and stealth mechanics are incredibly satisfying. You get this perfect blend of intense firefights, sneaky takedowns, and crafting that just keeps you engaged throughout. There's this real sense of progression, too. By the end of the game, I felt like Lara had grown so much, not just as a character, but in terms of abilities. You can craft your own explosives, improve your gear, and upgrade your skills, so it feels like you're always evolving. The game nails that feeling of being alone in the wilderness. There were plenty of moments where I felt like Lara was up against impossible odds, but her resilience kept pushing her forward. There's something really inspiring about that. It's like you're constantly in survival mode, scavenging for resources, battling enemies, and fighting the elements. I have to say, the tombs themselves are a standout. They're optional, but trust me, they're worth exploring. Some of the puzzles had me scratching my head for a while, but that moment of solving them is so satisfying. Red Dead Redemption 2, a game that absolutely dominated conversations when it came out, but somehow didn't win Game of the Year. And I get it, God of War was a beast in 2018, but let's be honest, Red Dead Redemption 2 was something else. This was a game that didn't just tell a story, it lived and breathed one. The world Rockstar created in Red Dead Redemption 2 was so immersive, it felt like the Old West was right there in front of you. And the detail? Insane. You could spend hours just wandering around, hunting, fishing, getting into random encounters. And every part of it felt like it was happening in real time. Rockstar nailed the atmosphere, from the dynamic weather to how towns felt alive. Even your horse had personality. People get so attached to their horses like it's a real companion. Now, the story is where the game really shines. Arthur Morgan? Easily one of the most complex, well-written characters in gaming. His whole journey of redemption, loyalty, and questioning his place in the gang gave players an emotional roller coaster. The game nailed that perfect blend of realism and fun. The way the world reacts to your choices, whether you're being honorable or wreaking havoc, makes every playthrough feel personal and unique. In the end, Red Dead Redemption 2 deserved all the praise and then some. It was more than just a game. It was an experience. The fact that it didn't win Game of the Year is still something people talk about, because it left such a lasting impact. Final Fantasy XVI. I wasn't sure what to expect going in because the series has gone through so many different styles, but this one really grabbed me right away. First off, the story got this darker, more mature vibe compared to some of the other Final Fantasy games. I love how it dives deep into political drama, with all these nations fighting over the power of the Icons. It feels like you're watching this epic medieval fantasy unfold. And speaking of Iconso Man, those battles are insane. You've got these massive cinematic showdowns between these godlike creatures. The scale of it all is just jaw-dropping. Plus, the real-time combat system. It's smooth, it's fast, and it's so satisfying when you pull off these combos and juggle enemies mid-air. I think that shift away from the turn-based combat really helps the game feel fresh, you know? Now, the world of Valisthea is stunning. Everywhere you go, the landscapes just pull you in. From vast deserts to lush forests, it's one of those worlds that begs to be explored. I found myself constantly stopping to just take in the view. The towns and cities feel lived into each. One has its own vibe, and I loved talking to NPCs and learning more about the world's lore. Plus, the side quests, they actually have depth. It's not just go fetch this or kill that, but instead, they give you more context about the world and characters, which I always appreciate. I think the only thing that threw me off at first was how different it feels from classic Final Fantasy games. Prey. This is one of those games that should have been a hit, but for whatever reason didn't catch on like it deserved to. And honestly, it's a real shame. Now, the controversy with Prey, it starts with the name. A lot of fans of the original Prey from 2006 were upset that Arkane's game had the same title, but was basically a completely different thing. There was no connection to the original Prey, no Tommy, no spirit abilities, none of that. So, right off the bat, some people were mad because they were expecting a sequel or continuation of the original, but Arkane went in a totally different direction. But if you put that aside and judge Prey for what it is, it's actually one of the best immersive sims out there. Arkane is known for crafting amazing worlds. The level design is just insane. You've got all these interconnected areas, and the way you can approach situations, whether you want to sneak, hack, fight, or even turn into a coffee cup. Yeah, that's a thing. Gives you so much freedom. And let's talk about the Typhon, the alien enemies in the game. The mimics are probably the most memorable. These little guys can disguise themselves as everyday objects, so every time you walk into a room, you're second-guessing everything. Is that chair just a chair, or is it about to jump at me? It adds this constant tension that makes the whole experience so gripping. Combat can be pretty tough, but it's rewarding. The glue gun is such a cool weapon. It's not just for fighting, but you can use it to create platforms and block hazards. Fallout 4. This game is all about exploring a massive, post-apocalyptic world filled with adventure, surprises, and the freedom to forge your own story. Right from the start, you're stepping into a world that feels alive. Well, as alive as a wasteland can be. You emerge into this beautifully ruined version of Boston, and there's this sense of mystery about what happened, who survived, and how you'll carve out your place in it. One of the best parts about Fallout 4 is just how much freedom you have. Want to be a hero, saving settlements and helping people out? Go for it. Prefer to be more of a lone wanderer, exploring every nook and cranny at your own pace? You can totally do that too. The game really lets you make those decisions and watch as the world reacts to you, which makes it feel super personal. And the combat, super satisfying. You can target specific body parts on enemies, which gives battles a bit of a strategic twist. Whether you're up against raiders, mutated creatures, or robots, every fight keeps you on your toes. And the weapon variety is massive. You can go from a simple pipe pistol to a full-blown laser rifle. Whatever fits your style. Plus, there's so much to discover. Every abandoned shack, rusted-out car, and hidden bunker has a story, whether it's in the form of an old journal, a skeleton in an odd place, or a stash of supplies that makes you wonder who left it behind. Fallout 4 is full of these tiny details that make the world feel rich and layered, like you're uncovering secrets at every turn. Amnesia: The Bunker. We all know Amnesia is famous for its psychological horror, but this time it's different, more intense, more claustrophobic. You're stuck in this grimy World War I bunker, and it's basically pitch black most of the time. Just that alone is enough to make you feel tense. I found myself constantly worrying about running out of light. I don't know about you, but for me, that's one of the worst feelings in a horror game, when you hear something but can't see it and your light is flickering. Yeah, no thanks. Speaking of the light, the whole mechanic with the hand crank flashlight is brilliant. It's one of those simple things that amps up the dread. You're cranking that thing as fast as you can, praying the batteries don't die while you hear something creeping up behind you. I legit felt my heart rate spike a few times. It adds this layer of vulnerability, but it also gives you just enough control to not feel totally helpless, just mostly helpless. The big difference in the bunker is how much freedom you have to explore. It's not as linear as the previous Amnesia games. You're given this bunker to explore at your own pace, which sounds nice, right? Except there's a monster roaming around that's hunting you the entire time. So, yeah, you're free to roam, but good luck trying to stay calm while something's lurking in the shadows. The bunker itself is like this living, breathing nightmare. It's got that eerie, abandoned vibe, but it's also full of details that make you feel like you're uncovering something dark. The atmosphere is thick with dread. Everything from the sound design to the way light barely reaches down those narrow corridors. Stray. When I first saw this game, I thought it was just going to be a charming little game where you play as a cat, exploring a futuristic city. But as I spent more time with it, I discovered it's so much more than that. It's like stepping into an emotional adventure through the eyes of a stray cat navigating a post-apocalyptic world. First off, being a cat in a video game feels surprisingly freeing. There's something deeply satisfying about hopping across rooftops, squeezing through tight spaces, and knocking over random objects just for the fun of it. The game nails the physicality of a cat. Every move feels so fluid and lifelike. It makes you think about how the world looks from their perspective, so close to the ground, yet always agile and in control. The world building in Stray is amazing. It's this blend of cyberpunk and decay, full of neon lights and towering buildings, but also a deep sense of isolation. The city itself feels alive, not in the way you'd expect, but more like it's holding its breath. You meet these small robots along the way, and they're oddly human in their interactions with you, despite being machines. They add a lot of heart to the game. There's a sense of community among them, and you can't help but feel drawn into their lives. The story unravels slowly, but it's layered with meaning. It touches on themes of companionship, survival, and hope in a broken world. The bond you develop with the small drone B-12 is touching in a way I didn't expect. It's funny how a game about a cat, without any dialogue from the main character, can be this emotional. Wolfenstein: Youngblood. It's a bold step into a new chapter, where you step into the boots of Jess and Soph Blazkowicz, twin daughters of the legendary B.J. Blazkowicz, as they carve their own bloody path through a Nazi-controlled Paris in the 1980s. The heart of the game lies in its co-op mechanics. It's built for teamwork, and the dynamic between the two sisters translates seamlessly into gameplay. Whether you're playing with a friend or teaming up with an AI partner, every encounter feels like a high-energy tag team of destruction. Coordinating attacks, sharing resources, and revving each other up with pep signals makes every fight feel alive and engaging. The gunplay is classic Wolfenstein, fast, punchy, and packed with variety. From the satisfying kick of a shotgun to the futuristic zap of a laser gun, there's a weapon for every playstyle. Upgrading your arsenal adds a layer of customization that lets you tailor your tools of destruction to your liking. It's not just about shooting, it's about shooting with style, precision, and that signature over-the-top flair. The structure of the game feels different in the best way possible. It's more open-ended, encouraging exploration, and giving you the freedom to tackle objectives in your own order. Paris isn't just a backdrop. It's a sprawling playground filled with hidden paths, enemy outposts, and countless opportunities to experiment with your approach. It's all about finding your rhythm, whether you're charging in guns blazing or sneaking around. Assassin's Creed Origins. It didn't win Game of the Year, but absolutely deserved to be in the conversation. After the series took a bit of a break, Origins came back swinging, and it basically reinvented the entire franchise. This was the game that moved Assassin's Creed from a more linear, mission-based structure to a full-blown open-world RPG, and it did it in style. First off, ancient Egypt as a setting? Incredible. The world they built in Origins was stunning, from the sprawling deserts to the bustling cities of Alexandria and Memphis. You could just wander around for hours, exploring tombs, pyramids, and hidden secrets. The amount of detail they put into recreating Egypt was mind-blowing, and it felt like you were actually stepping into history. Plus, playing as the first assassin was a breath of fresh air. He was such a well-rounded character, with a personal story that drove the whole plot forward in a meaningful way. The combat system was also completely overhauled. Gone were the days of just counter-killing everything in sight. Origins introduced a more dynamic, skill-based combat system that required you to dodge, block, and actually strategize during fights. It felt much more engaging and challenging compared to the older games. They also introduced RPG elements like leveling up, skill trees, and loot, which added a ton of depth to the gameplay. But here's the thing. 2017 was a ridiculously stacked year for gaming. The Callisto Protocol. It's from Glenn Schofield, one of the co-creators of Dead Space, so if you know that series, you can expect a similar intensity here, with a unique twist that keeps things fresh. One of the things I love about this game is how it creates tension. It's not just jump scares, though there are a few really effective ones. It's that constant feeling of dread. You're almost always low on ammo and health, so every encounter with the twisted, mutated inmates of this prison feels like a struggle to survive. The combat is brutal and up close, forcing you to really get in there and make every swing count. It's not your typical action game where you can just spray bullets and move on. Here, you're scraping by with whatever resources you can find, and it adds so much to the immersion and intensity. The combat is visceral. There's this raw, almost primal feel to it. The melee system in particular is pretty unique for a horror game. You actually have to get in close to bash these creatures, and it's terrifying in the best way. You're not just standing back with a gun, you're practically fighting for your life in every encounter, which makes the experience that much more intense. What really stands out, though, is how the game creates this balance between horror and sci-fi mystery. Sure, you're dealing with terrifying creatures and survival, but there's also this big, intriguing story underneath it all. Why did everything go wrong on Callisto? What's causing these transformations? The game does a great job of feeding you bits and pieces of the narrative as you go. Mortal Kombat 1. You know how some fighting games make you feel like you're mashing buttons, hoping for the best? Not here. Mortal Kombat 1 manages to strike that perfect balance between approachable for newcomers and deep enough for the hardcore crowd. The accessibility options deserve a shout-out too. Fighting games can sometimes feel like an exclusive club, where only the most dedicated players thrive, but Mortal Kombat 1 welcomes everyone. Tutorials? Check. Training modes? Double check. And the inputs for moves are forgiving enough that even your friend who's never touched a controller before can still have fun, and maybe even land a killer fatality. The controls are responsive, the pacing is satisfying, and pulling off a special move feels ridiculously rewarding. And the fatalities? Without spoiling anything, of course. The creativity here is just off the charts. It's like the developers sat in a room and asked, how can we make players' jaws drop every single time? And then they delivered. It's gruesome, it's over the top, and somehow it's hilarious in that classic Mortal Kombat way. But what really keeps me coming back is the variety in gameplay. Sure, the main fights are the meat of the experience, but there's so much to explore beyond that. The game isn't just about smashing buttons in endless matches. It gives you reasons to keep playing, whether it's unlocking cool stuff or experimenting with different characters. Bottom line, jump in, throw some punches, and enjoy the chaos. Mortal Kombat 1 doesn't hold back. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I can honestly say, it's unlike anything I've played before. Right from the beginning, it sets a tone that's dark, emotional, and deeply immersive. You can tell it's more than just an action-adventure game. There's a deeper story here, and it pulls you in with every step Senua takes on her journey. The story is so emotional, especially as it deals with mental health in such a powerful way. The way they portray Senua's psychosis, the voices in her head, it's also unsettling but fascinating at the same time. It's like you're constantly living inside her mind, and that really makes you connect with her. It's rare to see a game tackle such a heavy topic with so much respect and depth. And then there's the combat. It's intense, but it's not over the top. It feels personal. Like every fight is a struggle for survival. You're not just slashing through enemies for the sake of it. Each battle feels like it has weight, like Senua's fighting for something bigger. And the way the game makes you feel isolated, with those stunning landscapes that somehow feel both beautiful and haunting, it just adds to the experience. The audio design really stood out to me too. Wearing headphones made a huge difference. The voices surround you, whispering in your ear, sometimes confusing you, sometimes guiding you. It's such a smart use of sound to mess with your mind, making you question what's real. Just like Senua, I found myself genuinely tense during certain moments, not because of jump scares, but because of that constant feeling of unease. The Evil Within 2. If you've played the first one, you know it's already got that creepy, nightmarish vibe, but this sequel, it takes things to a whole new level. How it blends open-world elements with that tight, survival horror tension. You've got more freedom to explore this time, but it never feels too safe. Even in the open areas, there's this constant sense of dread, like something could jump out at you at any moment. And trust me, the game knows how to play with your nerves. The enemies in this game are wild. Some of the creature designs are just pure nightmare fuel, like that multi-limbed thing guardian. Still gives me the creeps just thinking about it. And don't even get me started on the bosses. Every encounter feels intense and nerve-wracking, especially since resources are still pretty scarce. You've got to be smart about when to fight and when to sneak around. The open areas give you more options for how to approach situations, which I really liked. Sometimes it felt satisfying to sneak by enemies unnoticed, and other times you'd have no choice but to go guns blazing. The game forces you to be adaptable. The story is solid too. It's got that psychological horror aspect that really messes with your head, but it also wraps up a lot of the loose ends from the first game in a satisfying way. And I've got to say, there are some twists in there that genuinely shocked me. It's not just about the scares. It's a good narrative experience too. And of course, the crafting system is back, so you can make your own ammo and gear. Alien Isolation. I don't think I've ever played a game that kept me on the edge of my seat like this one did. You know how some horror games throw constant jump scares at you? Not here. This one's all about that slow building tension. You're literally never safe. It captures that feeling of dread from the original Alien movie perfectly. And let me tell you, the atmosphere in this game is top tier. The space station is so incredibly detailed, like straight out of the 1970s vision of the future. It has that grimy, lived-in feel, which just adds to how isolated you feel. The lighting is phenomenal too. I remember creeping through these dimly lit corridors with shadows dancing everywhere. The vibe is so good, you just feel like you're there. And that's half the reason this game works so well. It makes you feel like you're in constant danger. I think one of the coolest things is that the xenomorph isn't the only thing you have to worry about. There's other stuff happening on the station, and it really creates this sense that the world is alive. Well, maybe not alive, but dangerous. I won't spoil anything, but let's just say, some of the other encounters are almost as tense as dealing with the alien itself. Alien Isolation isn't for everyone. If you don't like slower-paced games or being super stressed the whole time, maybe it's not your thing. But if you're someone who loves a good atmospheric challenge, and you appreciate a game that doesn't treat you like a kid, you're in for a treat. There's something incredibly satisfying about surviving an encounter with the alien. Demon's Souls. The world of this game is jaw-dropping, especially in the remake for the PS5. You step into this dark, eerie kingdom of Boletaria, and right away, the atmosphere pulls you in. Each area has this unique vibe, from creepy, foggy swamps to towering castles and fiery caverns. One thing that really stands out in Demon's Souls is how it doesn't hold your hand at all. There's no big tutorial here. Just you, your sword, and the mystery of Boletaria. That might sound intimidating, but honestly, it's what makes this game so memorable. You're learning as you go, and every little discovery feels like a personal victory. And when you finally figure out a tricky pattern or beat a boss that felt impossible, that's one of the most satisfying feelings in gaming. And speaking of bosses, Demon's Souls has some of the best. Each one is unique, creepy, and requires you to stay on your toes and really study their moves. You'll probably get your butt kicked a few times or a dozen times, but that's okay. It's all part of the fun. Each boss fight feels like a grand event. There's this tension in the air, and you're just waiting to see what insane move they're going to throw at you next. But when you finally bring one down, the victory feels so sweet, like you've just accomplished something epic. The game's mechanics are simple, but feel just right. It's not about flashy combos or crazy powers. It's about timing, patience, and learning from every mistake. Persona 5. Without spoiling anything, you play as a high school student with a secret double life. By day, you're navigating the trials and tribulations of school, classes, exams, and hanging out with your friends. But by night, you're a phantom thief, sneaking into mysterious realms to change hearts and fight evil. It's as cool as it sounds, trust me. The menus, the animations, even the transitions, everything feels like it was designed by someone with a passion for flair. Every little detail screams, "We're going to make this look amazing, even if it's just a loading screen." And don't even get me started on the music. The jazzy soundtrack is the kind of thing you'll be humming for weeks after you play. And the gameplay. It's this perfect blend of turn-based combat and life simulation, and somehow it works beautifully. One moment you're strategizing in these gorgeous, surreal dungeons, pulling off stylish combos and unleashing your personas, which, by the way, are basically manifestations of your inner psyche. The next, you're deciding how to spend your free time. Do you study for your next exam, work a part-time job, or go out for ramen with your friends? The balance between these two sides of the game is just chef's kiss. What I love most, though, is how Persona 5 makes everything you do feel meaningful. Spending time with your friends, called confidants, isn't just fun, it also gives you bonuses in battle. Doing well in school or working a part-time job helps you build skills that open up even more opportunities. Even the smallest choices feel like they matter. Atomic Heart, Enchantment Under the Sea, the latest DLC for Atomic Heart, that's here to take the already wild ride even deeper, literally. This expansion throws you into the underwater depths of Facility 3826, where you'll explore flooded labs and submerged chambers, adding a whole new layer of mystery and challenge to the game. The gameplay is familiar, but with a twist. You'll still be shooting, exploring, and solving puzzles. But now you'll need to deal with underwater environments that change everything. Visibility gets tricky, and the physics aren't quite the same. It's not just about fighting enemies anymore. It's about adapting to your surroundings, making each encounter feel fresh and unpredictable. And speaking of enemies, the expansion introduces new threats that keep you on your toes. These aren't just the same old foes from the main game. Expect to face enemies that require a bit more strategy and quick thinking. The arsenal in this DLC also gets a boost. You'll get your hands on new weapons and equipment designed specifically for the underwater combat you'll be doing. These new tools are crucial because they let you take on the new enemies with the right firepower and tactics. It's all about adapting and finding the best way to survive and thrive in this flooded world. One of the best parts of Enchantment Under the Sea is how it builds on the main story. It doesn't feel like just a side mission or something tacked on for fun. It feels like a real continuation that deepens the lore. Sekiro. I went in this game expecting something similar to Dark Souls, but nope. Sekiro has its own thing going on. It's all about timing, parrying, and mastering patience. You can't just hack your way through this one, but when you finally land that perfect parry or take down a boss that's been wrecking you, it's the most satisfying feeling ever. The combat is so tight and precise. I love how it's focused more on skill than stats. Every fight feels like a proper duel, especially with that posture system. Instead of just slashing away, you're breaking down their defense to land that killer blow. It's a challenge, but man, when you get the rhythm down, it's amazing. And that grappling hook, dude, it's such a game changer. You feel like a legit ninja, zipping around trees, rooftops, and sneaking up on enemies from above. I can't count how many times it saved me from getting killed. It just makes exploring the world way more fun. Speaking of the world, the whole setting in feudal Japan is stunning. The environments are so detailed, from peaceful bamboo forests to war-torn castles. Every area has this mysterious beauty to it. And as you explore, you start piecing together the lore, which is so From Software in the best way. Now, I won't lie. Sekiro is hard. It can be brutal, but in a good way. I've died more times than I care to admit, but each death feels like a lesson. You can't just rush in. You've got to learn your enemy's moves, find their patterns, and perfect your timing. And when you do, it's like reaching some kind of gamer zen. Lords of the Fallen. Now here's a game that has an interesting story, but not in the way you'd expect. Because I'm talking about the story of how the game itself has been received. Lords of the Fallen is one of those games that came out swinging with big ideas, tried some bold moves, and got, well, a lot of hate for it. And honestly, most of it feels a bit unfair. This game came out in the shadow of Dark Souls, and, I mean, it's tough to go toe-to-toe with that. People immediately compared it to From Software's epic series, and, fair enough, Lords of the Fallen definitely wears its inspiration on its sleeve. It's got that dark fantasy look, tough-as-nails combat, and a focus on dodging, blocking, and timing your attacks. But here's the thing. Just because it shares a genre doesn't mean it's trying to be a Dark Souls clone. And this is where I think a lot of players missed the point. Where Lords of the Fallen shines is in its own take on the action RPG formula. It doesn't try to be as brutally difficult as Dark Souls. Instead, it aims for more accessibility, which is honestly a great thing. It makes this style of game way more approachable for players who might be new to the genre or just don't have the time to get good through dozens of hours of trial and error. Lords of the Fallen balances challenge with a little more leniency, which is refreshing. The combat itself is actually really satisfying. It's chunky and there's this real weight to every swing of your weapon. It doesn't have the razor-sharp precision of Dark Souls. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This game feels like a love letter to everything that makes Zelda so timeless while carving out its own unique identity. The gameplay is nothing short of genius. Every element feels carefully crafted to spark curiosity and reward creative thinking. Whether you're solving intricate puzzles or facing off against enemies with clever strategies, the game constantly encourages you to experiment. It's all about figuring things out in your own way, with tools and mechanics that feel fresh, yet unmistakably Zelda. The world design in Echoes of Wisdom is masterful. Every corner of the map feels alive, brimming with possibilities. You might stumble upon ancient ruins, strange phenomena, or unexpected encounters that lead to entirely new adventures. Exploration is at the heart of everything, and the sense of freedom is exhilarating. There's no set path, just endless opportunities to discover, learn, and grow stronger. Combat is another highlight. It's fast, fluid, and dynamic, with a focus on strategy and timing that keeps things exciting. It's not just about swinging a sword or firing an arrow. It's about reading the situation, adapting to the challenge, and using your arsenal creatively. Every battle feels rewarding, whether you're taking on a towering boss or a tricky group of enemies that test your reflexes and planning. Echoes of Wisdom is an unforgettable journey filled with heart, puzzles, and a world bursting with charm. Black Myth Wukong. You know, when I first heard about this game, I wasn't sure what to expect, but the moment I saw the gameplay, it completely blew me away. This game is such a breath of fresh air in the action RPG genre, blending Chinese mythology with some seriously stunning visuals. You can tell the developers at Game Science have poured their hearts into this project, and it really shows. The main thing that struck me was how alive the world feels. The environments are rich, almost dreamlike, with incredible attention to detail. Whether it's a dense forest or ancient ruins, everything feels like it has history, like it's part of this vast, mythical landscape. And don't even get me started on the creature designs. Some of these enemies look straight out of Legends, but with a fresh, modern twist that makes them both terrifying and beautiful. As Wukong, you have access to a lot of cool abilities. And it's not just about fighting. There's a real sense of strategy involved. You can transform into different creatures and use their powers to outsmart enemies, which adds such a dynamic element to combat. It's not just about mashing buttons, but thinking on your feet. Every battle feels intense, like you're actually facing off against these legendary foes. But it's not all about combat. The story itself seems to be really captivating, diving deep into the lore of Journey to the West. The way the narrative is woven into the gameplay with cutscenes and dialogue really draws you in. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Now, this is a game that doesn't hold back. From the moment you start, it's full throttle, no apologies. The story picks up right after the first one, and let me tell you, they dive straight into the madness. You've got BJ Blazkowicz, still the ultimate Nazi killing machine, but now even more battle-worn and broken, both physically and mentally. And yet, he's still got that fire. He's out for blood, but there's this deeper emotional side to him in this game that really surprised me. The gunplay is pure chaos in the best way. The weapons are so satisfying, and when you dual-wield two massive guns, it's like you're a one-man army mowing down everything in your path. The combat is fast, brutal, and it just feels good. Every shot has impact. And the enemies don't just drop. They explode into chunks when you hit them right. It's gloriously over the top, and I loved every second of it. Oh, and let's talk about the villains. Frau Engel, she's terrifying. She's not just some generic evil figure. She's genuinely unsettling, with this twisted obsession and cruelty that makes her a perfect antagonist. You really want to take her down, and that's what drives you forward. The way the game builds tension between you and her is brilliant, and every time she shows up, you know things are about to get wild. The characters are fantastic. Whether it's old friends from the Resistance or new allies you meet along the way, everyone's got their own personality, and it makes you care about them. Some scenes had me laughing, others had me really thinking. Hellblade 2. The first Hellblade was all about that raw, emotional journey and its deep dive into mental health. So when the sequel came out, a lot of people were expecting the same kind of intimate experience. And while it definitely delivers on atmosphere and emotion, not everyone's on board with some of the changes. One of the big things people are talking about is the shift towards more combat. In the first game, the fighting was kind of secondary to the story. It was there, but it wasn't the main focus. With Hellblade 2, they've definitely ramped up the action, and some fans aren't too happy about that. They wanted more of those quiet, introspective moments that made the first game stand out. But honestly, I think the combat adds a new layer of intensity. Sure, it's more frequent, but it's still tied to Senua's emotional journey, and it makes sense within the context of the story. Another thing that stirred up some controversy is whether the game leans too heavily into its cinematic elements. There's a lot of visual spectacle in Hellblade 2. The graphics are insane, and the world building is next level, but some players feel like it's trying to be more of a movie than a game, which has rubbed a few people the wrong way. I get that, but at the same time, this is what Hellblade is all about, immersing you in this visceral, haunting world. What I love, though, is how Hellblade 2 stays true to its roots. Despite all these changes, it still tackles heavy themes like trauma and mental illness, and it does it with a lot of care and respect. That alone makes it stand out in today's gaming landscape. And even with more combat. Little Nightmares 2. From the moment you step into its eerie, twisted world, you know you're in for a wild ride. If you enjoyed the first game, this one takes everything that made Little Nightmares so great and cranks it up a notch. The atmosphere is even more disturbing, the puzzles are more challenging, and the story, while still cryptic, pulls you deeper into this unsettling nightmare realm. You play as Mono, a new character, but you're not alone. 6. The protagonist from the first game is there with you, and having that companion dynamic adds a new layer to the gameplay. It's cool how the game makes you rely on each other to get through the twisted environments. You'll need to work together to solve puzzles, escape enemies, and navigate the nightmarish world around you. It's not a co-op game, but that teamwork element feels fresh and gives you a stronger emotional connection to the characters. The world in Little Nightmares 2 is just as unsettling as you'd expect. It's full of grotesque, distorted creatures that'll send shivers down your spine. The design of the enemies is one of the game's strongest points. Each one is creepier than the last, and the way they move and interact with the environment keeps you on edge the whole time. There's a constant feeling of being hunted, which makes every encounter feel tense and nerve-wracking. What's really great about the game is how it balances those intense chase scenes with quieter, more atmospheric moments. You'll go from heart-pounding sequences where you're being chased by terrifying enemies. No Man's Sky, one of the most controversial video game redemption stories out there. When this game first launched, it got slammed hard, like really hard. People were furious because they felt like they were promised the universe, literally, and what they got didn't live up to all the hype. You know how it is when a game gets hyped beyond belief, right? Expectations just go through the roof. The biggest issues at launch were things like missing features, limited multiplayer options, and overall a lack of the promised living, breathing universe that players thought they'd get. It was a huge deal at the time. Everyone was like, where are the massive space battles? Where's all the depth? Players felt misled, and it led to some pretty angry reviews. No Man's Sky became the poster child for overpromised and underdelivered games. But here's the crazy part. Instead of throwing in the towel, the developers at Hello Games just kept working on it. They didn't give up. And over time, they transformed the game into something truly special. Seriously, the updates have been absolutely massive. They kept adding the features players were hoping for, like base building, expanded multiplayer, better exploration mechanics, and more dynamic planets. Now, it's packed with content, and it's a totally different experience from what people saw at launch. It's honestly one of the most positive turnarounds in gaming. It went from being the game everyone loved to hate, to becoming a beloved space exploration game with a really dedicated fanbase. Borderlands 3. The combat in Borderlands 3 is just pure, unfiltered chaos in the best way possible. You've got guns that shoot other guns, grenades that create black holes, and even weapons that yell insults while you fire them. It's not just about how many guns there are, though there are a lot. It's how creative and ridiculous they are. Every time you pick up a new weapon, you never know if it's going to completely change how you play, or just make you laugh out loud. And let's not forget the movement. They've really amped it up in this game. You can slide, mantle, and just zoom around the battlefield like a maniac. It makes every encounter feel dynamic and keeps the adrenaline pumping. There's nothing quite like sliding into cover, tossing out your action skill, and watching as absolute mayhem unfolds around you. Now let's talk about the world. Or should I say worlds? This isn't just Pandora anymore. Nope. Borderlands 3 takes you to multiple planets, each with its own unique vibe. You've got lush jungles, neon-lit cities, and even deserts that feel alive with danger and opportunity. It's a visual feast, and the art style? Still that iconic comic book-inspired look, but sharper and more vibrant than ever. It's like someone took a Saturday morning cartoon, threw in some chaos, and cranked it up to HD. Now, I know some people think the story in Borderlands 3 might be a bit wild or over the top, but that's kind of the point. It's unapologetically zany, and for me, that's a big part of the charm. Next we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This game is like every Star Wars fan's dream come to life. Seriously, if you've ever imagined wielding a lightsaber, dodging blaster shots, or facing off against terrifying Sith enemies, Fallen Order is the game for you. It just pulls you in and makes you feel like a Jedi in training, and it's just so much fun. This game takes you all over the Star Wars galaxy, from lush forests to crumbling ancient ruins, and everything in between. Each planet has its own feel, its own mysteries, and its own set of enemies and challenges. There's this amazing sense of adventure as you move from planet to planet, uncovering secrets, exploring caves, and finding new paths. And the level design is a blast. It's got that classic Metroidvania vibe, where you keep discovering new abilities that let you access areas you couldn't reach before. You're constantly rewarded for exploring and backtracking, which just makes the whole journey so satisfying. Swinging a lightsaber in Fallen Order feels right. There's a weight to it, and when you deflect a blaster bolt back at a stormtrooper, pure joy. The combat strikes this perfect balance between fun and challenging. It's not button mashing. You actually have to time your attacks, parries, and dodges to succeed, which makes every encounter feel intense and meaningful. Plus, as you go along, you get to customize your lightsaber. You can pick different colors, hilts, and other parts to make it feel like your weapon, which is just such a cool touch. Fallen Order has an incredible story of Dead Island 2. It's one of those games that after being in development for so long, you're just happy it finally exists. If you're into zombie games, this one is like a bloody sun-soaked vacation, where you can let loose and hack, slash, and smash your way through hordes of the undead. What's cool about it is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. The game knows exactly what it is, a fun, over-the-top zombie slasher set in sunny California. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. First off, the setting is great. Instead of a gloomy, post-apocalyptic wasteland, Dead Island 2 takes place in a colorful, almost absurdly beautiful version of Los Angeles. They call it Hell-A, and the contrast between the bright, glamorous world of Hollywood and the grotesque, decaying zombies is just awesome. You're running through luxury mansions, beaches, and fancy neighborhoods, all while the city crumbles around you. It's like you're on a demented version of a sightseeing tour. The zombies themselves come in all shapes and sizes, and they're not pushovers. You've got your standard walkers, but there are also faster, more aggressive types, like runners and screamers who can call for reinforcements. Some are armored, others are on fire or covered in acid, and each type forces you to adjust your tactics. It keeps you on your toes and makes the combat feel fresh. You're constantly adapting and finding new ways to take them down, whether it's by using environmental traps, setting them on fire, or just going for headshots. BioShock. It changes the way you think about storytelling in video games. It's set in Rapture, this underwater city that was meant to be a utopia. But when you arrive, things have clearly gone very, very wrong. From the moment you step out of that bathysphere and see the city for the first time, you know you're in for something special. The atmosphere is just dripping with tension and mystery, and it pulls you in immediately. The story is a masterpiece. Without getting into spoilers, let's just say that it's filled with twists and turns that keep you hooked the entire way. And the way the game tackles themes of power, control, and free will, it's on another level. The characters, like Andrew Ryan, are unforgettable, with some of the most iconic lines in gaming history. You're constantly questioning what's really going on, and by the time you get to the big reveal, it's absolutely mind-blowing. The combination of guns and plasmids gives you a ton of variety in combat. You're not just shooting enemies. You're using all sorts of powers like shooting electricity, freezing foes, or even setting them on fire. The game gives you so many ways to approach every situation, and that makes each encounter feel fresh. Plus, there are the big daddies, these towering, armored monsters that protect the little sisters. Every fight with them feels like a boss battle, and it's always intense. The moral choices in the game are another standout feature. You can choose to either save or harvest the little sisters, and those decisions have a real impact on how the game unfolds. Spec Ops: The Line. It's one of those games that messes with your expectations in the best way. I remember going into it thinking, oh, just another military shooter, right? At first glance, it looks like your standard third-person cover shooter. You're leading a squad, you've got your guns, sandstorms everywhere because it's set in Dubai, and it all seems pretty straightforward, but as you dig deeper, that's where things start to unravel. The story pulls you in directions you don't expect, and it really makes you question your choices, like seriously question them. What I loved about Spec Ops: The Line is how it uses the setting and the characters to play with your mind. You start feeling like the hero, but after certain missions you're like, wait, am I doing the right thing here? The game gets into some heavy stuff about the horrors of war and the consequences of your actions, which is something most shooters don't really touch on. It's more than just, go here, shoot this. There's a layer of guilt and responsibility that weighs on you by the end. Plus, the gameplay is solid. I mean, the shooting mechanics are great, the cover system works well, and the environmental destruction with the sandstorms is a cool twist. But really, the gameplay is just a vehicle for the narrative, and that's what elevates this game from being just another shooter to something special. You don't see a lot of games that really make you reflect on the violence in that way. Honestly, if you're into games that challenge you emotionally and mentally, while still delivering fun, engaging action, Spec Ops is a must. Mortal Kombat 11. The game that takes everything you know and love about this legendary franchise and cranks it up to 11, literally. The combat feels tight, responsive, and packed with layers of depth. Whether you're a button masher or someone who's memorized every single combo in the series, the game caters to all kinds of players. It's easy to jump in and start throwing punches, but mastering a character, that's where the real fun begins. And speaking of characters, the roster here is incredible. You've got old favorites, some unexpected returns, and a few surprises that will definitely keep you on your toes. Each fighter feels unique, with their own playstyle, moves, and, of course, those iconic fatalities. Seriously, the fatalities in this game are a spectacle. They're gruesome, sure, but they're also so over the top that you can't help but laugh and cringe. It's like a masterclass in creative chaos. But it's not just about fighting, it's about strategy. Mortal Kombat 11 introduces new mechanics like the Fatal Blow and Crushing Blows, which add an extra layer of depth to each match. These aren't just flashy moves, they're game changers that can turn the tide of a fight if used wisely. It's all about timing and knowing when to strike, and it keeps every match feeling fresh and unpredictable. One thing that stands out is how accessible the game feels without sacrificing its complexity. If you're new to the series, the tutorials are super helpful, breaking down everything from basic moves to advanced strategies. Baldur's Gate 3. If you're into RPGs or Dungeons & Dragons, this is basically a dream come true. The thing is, it's not just the story. It's the choices you make, the characters you meet, the dice rolls that can completely change how a situation unfolds. Every playthrough feels different, and I love that about it. First off, let's talk about the freedom this game gives you. You can literally do anything. Want to sneak past enemies instead of fighting them? Go for it. Want to convince a dragon to let you pass with just a bit of clever dialogue? Roll those dice. Or if you're feeling chaotic, you can just, blow stuff up with magic and hope for the best. That freedom makes every encounter feel fresh, and it's not just about combat. Your decisions can have lasting consequences on the story, on your companions, and even on the world itself. The story itself is wild. You start off with this mind flayer parasite in your brain, which immediately sets the stakes super high. And as you try to find a cure, you uncover all these other crazy plots and factions vying for control. It's dark, it's epic, and the world is full of so many cool little stories and side quests that it's easy to get lost in it all. The best part? You can shape the story in so many different ways, whether you want to be a hero, a villain, or something in between. The game doesn't force you down one path. It really feels like your journey. It's got that perfect blend of story, character development, and strategic combat, all wrapped up in this beautiful, sprawling world. The Last of Us. Oh man, where do I even begin? You know how some games just stick with you long after you've finished them? That's exactly what The Last of Us did for me. It's so emotionally charged. Like, I knew it was going to be intense, but it's even more than I expected. Joel and Ellie's relationship? It's not just a typical protect the girl storyline. They feel like real people with real flaws. I think that's what I loved most, how raw and human it all feels. You watch them grow together in this messed up world, and it's not always pretty, but it's real. Speaking of the world, the post-apocalyptic setting is both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Naughty Dog nailed that feeling of dread when you're walking through those overgrown cities. It's eerie, especially with the sound design. The clickers? Man, every time I heard them, my heart rate went up. And they're not even the worst part. The humans in this game, sometimes they're scarier than the infected. But honestly, it's the quieter moments that hit me the hardest. There's this one scene with Ellie in the giraffe sequence that made me just stop and take it in. In a world where everything's falling apart, there are still these tiny glimpses of beauty, It makes you think about how people hold on to hope, even in the worst situations. Gameplay-wise, it's super tight. There's this constant balance of stealth, action, and scavenging. But what I appreciated most was how every encounter felt like it had stakes. You don't always have enough resources to just go guns blazing. Crash Bandicoot 4. This game is a wild ride that combines classic Crash nostalgia with fresh, modern twists that feel like a love letter to longtime fans and a great entry point for newcomers. It's a bit of a crazy platformer, full of vibrant, chaotic worlds, tricky jumps, and the kind of fun challenge that makes you feel like a gaming hero when you finally nail it. Now, if you've played the old-school Crash games, you know that platforming here isn't a walk in the park, and Crash 4 definitely stays true to that. It's challenging, sometimes rage-inducing, but in the best possible way. There's this huge sense of satisfaction when you master those jumps, dodge obstacles, and make it to the end of a level. It's like the game is constantly daring you to just try it one more time. And hey, if you're someone who loves going for 100% completion, this game has you covered with tons of collectibles, hidden gems, and alternate paths. One of the coolest things about Crash 4 is the introduction of the Quantum Mask. These are special masks you can collect that each give you a unique ability, like slowing down time or flipping gravity. They really shake things up and make you think about platforming in a new way. Each mask adds a layer of strategy and keeps the gameplay fresh. So even if you're 10 or 20 levels in, there's always something new to discover. The masks really give Crash, and Coco, if you prefer to play as her, a fun, super-powered feel without making the game any less challenging. Sifu. What's crazy about Sifu is how brutal it can be. I mean, you're this martial artist out for revenge, and the combat system is so fluid, but also super challenging. It's not the kind of game where you can just mash buttons, but the real twist? The aging mechanic. Every time you die, your character ages, and it changes how you play. As you get older, you hit harder, but lose health. It's such a clever way to keep the tension high. You're constantly trying to balance staying alive while still taking risks. There's this internal struggle like, do I push through this fight now, or should I retreat and try again later? The more you age, the fewer chances you have to finish your mission, which makes every death feel meaningful. The level design is awesome too. You're moving through these beautifully crafted environments, from neon-lit nightclubs to serene temples. Each one feels like a love letter to classic kung fu movies. The game's art style is sleek and minimal. but the environments are so detailed, and the atmosphere is on point. You really feel like you're living out this martial arts epic. What I also loved is how seafood doesn't hold your hand. The difficulty can be punishing, but in a way that makes you want to get better. It's all about learning from your mistakes and coming back stronger. Each time you die, you're learning the enemy's patterns, figuring out new strategies. It's got that Dark Souls vibe where every failure is a lesson. If you love a good challenge and want to experience some of the best hand-to-hand combat in gaming, Sifu is a must-play. Middle-earth: Shadow of War. It got a bit of a rough start, but honestly, deserved way more love than it got. Now, when it dropped back in 2017, the game had a lot of expectations riding on it because Shadow of Mordor was such a hit. And Shadow of War did a lot of things right, but there's no denying it also stirred up some serious controversy, which didn't help its case at launch. First, let's get the big elephant in the room out of the way: the microtransactions. Yep, that's where a lot of the initial hate came from. It was a single-player game, but Warner Bros. Thought, hey, let's toss in loot boxes and microtransactions. Gamers were not having it. Understandably, no one wants to feel like they're being nickeled and dimed in a story-driven experience. What's wild, though, is that they eventually removed the microtransactions completely. But by then, the damage had already been done. A lot of people had already written it off. And that's a real shame because, beyond all the controversy, Shadow of War had so much going for it. First off, that Nemesis system, still genius. I mean, creating rivalries with orcs who remember you, plot against you, or come back from the dead for revenge. It's such a unique mechanic that really makes every playthrough different. The world felt alive, chaotic, and personal, in a way most open-world games dream of achieving. Then, there's the scale of the game. They took what worked in Shadow of Mordor and just made it bigger. More fortresses to conquer, more regions to explore, and even more dynamic relationships with your followers and enemies. The Witcher 3. Blood and Wine. This expansion feels like a full-blown adventure of its own. The moment you step foot here, you'll notice how vibrant and distinct the region is, filled with rolling vineyards, colorful towns, and plenty of mystery lurking beneath the surface. Combat remains razor-sharp and strategic, with plenty of opportunities to test out different builds, potions, and tactics. The enemies in Toussaint are as unique as the land itself, with new creatures and foes that challenge your skills in fresh ways. Whether you're engaging in swordplay, using signs to control the battlefield, or preparing for a fight with meticulous planning, every encounter feels satisfying. Exploration in Blood and Wine is an absolute highlight. Toussaint is filled with hidden treasures, intriguing side quests, and areas that beg to be explored. From quaint villages to ominous ruins, each location feels handcrafted and packed with detail. Taking the time to wander off the beaten path often leads to some of the game's most memorable moments, and the world rewards curiosity at every turn. One of the standout features here is the attention to customization. Blood and Wine introduces new armor sets, upgrades, and even a personal vineyard that you can enhance. It's a small touch, but it adds a layer of connection to the world. Toussaint is a land that feels alive, brimming with charm, danger, and opportunities to immerse yourself in its world. It's the kind of expansion that reminds you why The Witcher 3 is considered one of the best RPGs ever made. Tekken 8. Now, if you're worried about the gameplay, don't be. This is still the Tekken you know and love, fast-paced, technical, and ridiculously satisfying. But Tekken 8 doesn't just play it safe, it's added a few new tricks to keep things fresh. It's all about aggressive gameplay, rewarding you for staying on the offensive and pulling off some truly flashy moves. It feels like the game is encouraging you to take risks and go for broke, and when you pull off a perfectly timed heat burster combo, chef's kiss. Speaking of combos, let's just take a moment to appreciate how good it feels to land one in Tekken 8. There's something so satisfying about stringing together a series of hits, juggling your opponent, and finishing with a cinematic blow. It's like painting a masterpiece, except your paintbrush is your fist, and the canvas is your opponent's face. What I've always loved about Tekken is how every character feels so unique, and Tekken 8 takes that to a whole new level. Whether you're into the brutal power of King's wrestling moves, the lightning-fast precision of Kazuya, or the wild acrobatics of characters like Ling Xiaoyu, there's a fighter here for everyone. And don't worry if you're new. The game does a great job of easing you into the mechanics, but let's be real. Learning the ropes is half the fun. The other half? That moment when you finally master a character and start pulling off ridiculous combos that make your friends yell, "How did you do that?" And the story mode? Buckle up. because Tekken 8 delivers the drama. The Division 2. It's like someone took the best parts of a cover-based shooter, mashed them up with RPG elements, and then dropped it all into a beautifully detailed, post-apocalyptic Washington, D.C. So the setup is simple. The world's gone sideways, and it's your job to bring some order to the chaos. You're an agent of the Division, a group of super-trained operatives trying to hold everything together. But honestly, the real fun isn't in saving the day. It's in exploring, strategizing, and slowly building yourself into an unstoppable force of nature. The game is all about cover-based strategy here. Running into a fight, guns blazing? Yeah, good luck with that. Instead, you're ducking behind cars, flanking enemies, and figuring out how to use your gadgets to outsmart the other side. And those gadgets? Absolute lifesavers. Turrets, drones, seeker mines. You've got a whole arsenal of futuristic toys to mess with, and they're all ridiculously fun to use. The enemies aren't just bullet sponges either. They're smart. They'll flank you, use cover, and coordinate to take you down. There's a real sense of satisfaction when you clear an area because you earned it. Every firefight feels intense and rewarding, especially when you're playing with friends. Speaking of which, co-op is where this game truly shines. Rolling into a mission with your squad, calling out targets and covering each other's backs. It's peak teamwork. Plus, there's something hilarious about your buddy panicking over the comms while you're casually tossing a healing grenade their way. Far Cry Primal. If you've played other Far Cry games, you might be expecting guns, explosions, and chaotic mayhem, right? Well, throw all of that out the window because this time, we're stepping way back in time, like 10,000 years back. Instead of modern weaponry and cars, you're rocking spears, bows, and a few other prehistoric tools that make you feel like a true Stone Age warrior. And honestly, it's such a refreshing change. There's something incredibly satisfying about hunting with a bow you crafted yourself, or sneaking through tall grass with a spear in hand, ready to take down a woolly mammoth. You feel connected to the land in a way that's hard to describe. You've got lush forests, snow-capped mountains, and rivers that glimmer in the sunlight. And it's alive with creatures you'd expect in the Stone Age. Saber-toothed tigers, mammoths, bears, you name it, it's probably roaming around. One of the coolest parts of the game is the beast taming. Yes, you can actually tame animals. Imagine being followed by your very own saber-toothed tiger, or having a giant bear at your side, ready to wreck anything that crosses your path. It's as awesome as it sounds. The game lets you bond with these creatures, and they're not just tools. They feel like companions. Honestly, it's kind of heartbreaking if you lose one in battle. What I love about Far Cry Primal is how it makes survival feel primal. You're not just running and gunning. You're scavenging, crafting, and fighting for every inch of progress. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. If you haven't played the Mass Effect series yet, you're in for a serious treat. And if you have, well, this remastered edition is the perfect excuse to dive back into one of the most iconic sci-fi RPGs out there. Right from the start, the game just grabs you. You're Commander Shepard, and your choices shape the entire galaxy. The stakes feel huge, but what's cool is that you're never just watching the story happen. You're actively making choices that change everything. And I mean everything from little side stories to major plot twists. It's one of those games where you actually feel the weight of your decisions. And that's rare. And the galaxy? It's incredible. You're exploring different planets, seeing all these unique alien cultures, and uncovering a rich sci-fi world with every mission. It's like living in your own sci-fi epic, from the action-packed battles to the quiet moments of exploration. The Legendary Edition really brings this world to life too, with upgraded visuals that make each planet and environment feel fresh, vibrant, and epic in scale. The combat is a blast too. Whether you're going full biotic powers or charging in guns blazing, there's a style that fits however you want to play. And with all the upgrades and tweaks in this edition, it feels smoother than ever, especially in the first game, which has been brought up to speed with the later ones. Plus, the Legendary Edition has smoothed out some of the rough edges, making it even easier for new players to jump in and get the full experience. Detroit Become Human. It's one of those games where you're not just watching a story play out, you're actually shaping it. Your choices matter, and I mean really matter. The choices aren't always easy either. Sometimes you're like, what's the right choice here? And there's no clear answer. It's all about what you value, and that affects the relationships you build and the path you take. There's this branching storyline, So the game reacts to your choices in a way that feels organic. Each playthrough can be so different, and it's wild seeing how even small decisions can snowball into something huge later on. You play as 3 different androids, each with their own story, and the game does an amazing job of making you care about each one. You feel invested in their struggles, their choices, and what they want for their lives. The best part for me was the emotional weight. The game digs into some pretty deep themes: freedom, empathy, what it means to be human. And because it's so interactive, it really makes you think about what you do in these situations. By the end, you're not just playing a game, you're reflecting on your own beliefs and choices, which is pretty rare for a video game. And Detroit doesn't shy away from tension either. There are moments where you're genuinely on the edge of your seat, trying to make quick decisions that could totally change everything. And the stakes are high because, things can go wrong in big ways if you make a wrong call. So, yeah, Detroit Become Human is perfect if you're into games that let you dig into a story deeply, and that give you control over what happens. Greedfall. It's this cool mix of fantasy and colonialism. I feel like it flew under the radar for a lot of people. But once you dive in, it's hard to stop. You know that feeling when a game has such a rich world, and you're like, why didn't I hear more about this? That's Greedfall for me. The first thing that really struck me was the setting. It's got this new world exploration feel, but instead of America or something, you've got this mysterious island called Tir-Fadi, filled with monsters and these indigenous tribes who have their own deep culture. Honestly, I think the world building is one of the game's strongest points. Like, there's this constant sense of discovery, and every place feels like it's hiding a secret or two. And the story. It's a classic RPG in the sense that your choices really shape the narrative. I found myself agonizing over some of the decisions, like, do I side with the natives or the colonial factions? Do I negotiate or fight? It really makes you think about the consequences, which I appreciate. It's not just black and white morality either. It's all these shades of gray. I think that's why it kept me hooked. It's a game that rewards you for paying attention to details and thinking about your choices. The companions are super well done too. I love how they've got their own backstories and personal quests, and the interactions with them feel meaningful. I actually cared about what happened to them, which doesn't always happen in RPGs, So yeah, if you're into RPGs with a bit of a twist, Greedfall is definitely worth checking out. Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain. It's one of those experiences that really makes you feel like you're in control of a tactical open-world espionage operation. From the moment you start as Big Boss, or Venom Snake, if you want to get technical, you know you're in for something special. The way the game blends stealth, action, and freedom of choice is just next level. Let's start with the open world. Unlike previous Metal Gear games, which were more linear, The Phantom Pain drops you into these massive living environments. You've got Afghanistan's rocky, mountainous terrain, and the jungles of Africa, each filled with enemy bases, patrols, and wild animals. The thing is, the world isn't just a backdrop. It reacts to how you play. You can approach missions any way you want, whether it's going in guns blazing or sneaking in without anyone ever knowing you were there. And the best part? If you get caught, the game doesn't punish you too harshly. You can adapt, think on your feet, and still pull off the mission. That freedom keeps the tension high and the experience fresh every time. The stealth mechanics, they're just so well done. You've got all these tools at your disposal. Decoys, tranquilizer guns, night vision goggles, and you can customize your loadout for every mission. One of my favorite things to do is use the cardboard box, classic Metal Gear, to sneak around or surprise enemies. It's so ridiculous, but somehow always works. And Mother Base is such a cool feature. You're constantly building it up. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. For some reason, it didn't get the love it deserved when it first came out. I mean, Lara Croft is a gaming icon, and the rebooted trilogy had been going strong, but when Shadow of the Tomb Raider dropped, it kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people. But honestly, this game is way better than its reputation suggests. Well, a lot of it came down to timing. Shadow of the Tomb Raider launched during a crowded time, with some big AAA games releasing around the same period, so it got overshadowed. Plus, some critics said it didn't do enough to innovate from the previous two games. People expected something groundbreaking after Rise of the Tomb Raider, but instead, they got a game that felt more like an evolution than a revolution. But here's the thing, what's so bad about sticking to a formula that works? The story, for example, is actually pretty deep. And let's not forget the world building. Shadow of the Tomb Raider has some of the most beautiful environments in the entire series. From dense jungles to hidden tombs, the game is visually stunning. The tombs themselves are more complex and rewarding than before, with some really creative puzzles that feel satisfying to solve. If you love the exploration and puzzle-solving aspects of Tomb Raider, this game nails it. Combat also feels more refined. Sure, it's not the focus as much as it was in the earlier reboot games, but that actually works in the game's favor. Shadow of the Tomb Raider encourages stealth and strategy over pure action, which fits the tone of the game. Red Dead Redemption. Even after all these years, it's one of those games that still holds a special place in gaming history. It's more than just a cowboy game. It's a deep, emotional journey set in the fading days of the Wild West. You play as John Marston, a former outlaw, trying to leave his past behind. But of course, it's never that simple. The game's world, story, and characters are all top tier, pulling you into this incredible, open-world experience. The gunplay is smooth, with that satisfying dead-eye system that lets you slow down time and pick off targets with precision. Whether you're involved in epic shootouts or quick-draw duels, the action feels cinematic and intense. But it's not all about combat. You can spend just as much time exploring, engaging in side missions, or even playing mini-games like poker and horseshoes. The story is also a huge draw. John Marston's journey is one of redemption, family, and loyalty, and it's so well written. The characters you meet along the way, from outlaws to lawmen to settlers, are all memorable and feel like they're part of this living, breathing world. You get attached to these characters, and by the end, you're really invested in John's fate. The emotional weight of the story is one of the reasons why this game is still talked about as one of the best. The ending, without spoiling anything, is one of the most impactful and talked about conclusions in gaming. It's the kind of story that sticks with you long after you've finished it. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Imagine taking a trip back to the Viking era, where you're not just any Viking, but Eivor, a fierce warrior ready to carve their own legend. Right from the start, this game pulls you in with that unmistakable Viking vibe. You're out there raiding, exploring, and building your own settlement. The combat in Valhalla is brutal in the best way possible. As Eivor, you can dual-wield weapons, mix and match different fighting styles, and pull off some pretty epic moves. The combat feels meaty and satisfying, with every hit landing with a sense of weight behind it. And when it comes to raiding, it's absolute chaos in the best way. There's something so exhilarating about sailing up to a village, sounding the horn, and charging in with your crew. You can tell the developers put a lot of love into making every raid feel intense and chaotic. Oh, and then there's the settlement, Ravensthorpe. This place becomes your base of operations, and building it up feels incredibly rewarding. As you raid and gather resources, you're constantly adding new buildings and unlocking cool features. The settlement is full of life, with characters you actually care about. It's not just a place you go to between missions. It becomes a little slice of home for Eivor and the crew. You'll spend time upgrading the blacksmith, brewing with the tattoo artist, and even feasting with your fellow Vikings. There's this sense of community that feels genuine and makes you want to see Ravensthorpe thrive. If you're a fan of Norse myths, Valhalla has you covered. Stalker 2. So, you know how some games make you feel like you're surviving? Like, really surviving? That's Stalker 2 in a nutshell. The zone is the star of the show. It's haunting, it's dangerous, and it's unpredictable. What I love most is how it doesn't hold your hand. You're thrown into this place, and you just have to figure it out. It's like the game is saying, hey, good luck out there, buddy. And honestly, that's part of what makes it so satisfying. It's all about exploration, taking risks, and making decisions that can completely change your experience. If you've played the original Stalker games, you already know this isn't your typical shoot and loot affair. You're scavenging, crafting, and constantly managing your resources. And it feels real. Ammo isn't something you take for granted. Food and medical supplies, you'll cherish them like gold. And don't even get me started on the anomalies. These bizarre, deadly phenomena scattered across the zone add this layer of tension that keeps you on edge at all times. Every step you take feels like it matters. The NPCs you encounter in Stalker 2 are not just background noise. They feel like real people trying to survive, just like you. Some might help you, some might not. And figuring out who to trust is all part of the journey. If you love a good challenge, or if you just want to experience something truly unique, Stalker 2 needs to be on your radar. It's not just a sequel, it's a love letter to fans of the series and a bold step forward into a new generation of gaming. Silent Hill 2 Remake. I've got to say, it totally nails that eerie, unsettling vibe that made the original such a classic. I mean, Silent Hill 2 is already one of the most iconic horror games out there, but this remake, it's like they took all the stuff that creeped us out back in the day and cranked it up with these incredible graphics and sound design. The foggy town of Silent Hill looks absolutely gorgeous in this remake. Well, in a terrifying, twisted way, of course. The way the fog moves, the way the shadows creep along the streets, it's so atmospheric. Walking through those empty, run-down streets, you can just feel the tension building. I caught myself hesitating before turning corners, just bracing for whatever nightmare was waiting around the bend. The monsters are just insane. Pyramid Head is back, and just as horrifying as ever. Seeing him in high definition? Yeah, it gave me chills. And the sound design makes it even worse. In the best way. You'll hear these distant, unsettling noises, and it just puts you on edge the entire time. The sound of the radio static kicking in right before a monster appears still gets me every time. What I also love is how faithful the remake is to the original, but it also adds some nice quality of life improvements. The controls feel smoother. The combat is a little more refined, but it still keeps that you're not some action hero vibe. Every encounter with a monster feels dangerous, like you're barely scraping by, which is exactly what you want in a horror game like this. If you're into survival horror at all, or if you loved the original, you've got to check this out.